Chapter 721. What's going on? Asked Andre in a puzzled face as he looked at Han Shuo, who had come to visit in the middle of the night. Han Shuo casually tossed Guli to the ground. She was slowly regaining consciousness, but it seemed that she had not figured out what was going on. Her brows were bunched, and she was mumbling in a low voice. Just now, I went to the God Swamp Pharmacy to ask about this situation. Little did I expect to run into people from the God Swamp Pharmacy chasing after her. I heard her talking about the God Swamp Pharmacy. She said that there are toxicologists who conduct experiments on living people. She also mentioned something about organs. I noticed that the poison in her body was exactly the same as the poison in the body of the Divine Guard from the House of Kisa. That was why I brought her to you, explained Han Shuo after tossing Guli to the ground. What? Andre was startled. He softly cried out. You are saying that the God Swamp Pharmacy is brazenly committing illegal acts? That's right. I don't know the specifics, but Guli is about to wake up. You can ask her about it, replied Han Shuo. He wanted to draw a clear line between the matter and himself so that Andre would not think that Han Shuo was trying to frame the God Swamp family. Andre suddenly landed beside Guli and covered Guli's head with his large hand. 2 puffs of black smoke slowly came out from Guli's nostrils. She immediately woke up and cried out in alarm. God Swamp Pharmacy! Poison! Poison! Guli quickly saw who the people around her were. She was rather startled at first as she did not know why she was in this place. But when she saw that Han Shuo was still around, she suddenly shrieked. You lied to me! Those medicinal ingredients that you mentioned are not in the pharmacological records. Are you lying to me? I am Andre from the House of Saint. What did you see in the God Swamp Pharmacy? Asked Andre with a gloomy face. He had no time to care about the dispute between Guli and Han Shuo. Guli was shocked. She finally understood the situation. Then, she screamed even louder. That's right! Tonight, I accidentally saw the God Swamp Pharmacy moving some things. I discovered that they... Guli explained what had happened in a few words. Then, she said in a panic, I was shot by that person with a crossbow. There's poison on the crossbow. Why am I here? It was Brian who saved you. Andre replied impatiently. He then asked in a deep voice, Is what you said true? Why would I lie to you? I saw it with my own eyes. Guli affirmed. Very well. I didn't expect the God Swamp Pharmacy to do such a thing right under our noses. Andre wore a gloomy face. He paced around the room and said to Han Shuo, Thank you, Brian. I need to get to the bottom of the situation immediately. If the God Swamp Pharmacy is really going to do that, they will be removed from the City of Shadows after tonight. Lord Andre, I can go with you. The God Swamp Pharmacy might have moved those unclean things away. I am very good at locating things. Perhaps I can be of help to you. Before Han Shuo left, he placed a few demon generals on top of a few nearby buildings and secretly observed the process of those people moving. He had a good idea of the new location of those things. Andre had heard from Carmelita about Han Shuo's expertise in this field. He nodded in agreement and said, Although the God Swamp Pharmacy won't be that fast, there's no harm in you tagging along. Let's go. It was obvious that Andre did not think that a mere pharmacy shop would have that much influence. It seemed that he wanted to grab a ready-made one as soon as possible. Hey, brat, you saved me? Why did you save me? And I was clearly poisoned. Why am I fine? Don't tell me it was you. Guli was still making a fuss. Han Shuo paid no attention to her. He casually replied, A mere poison is nothing to me. You are a pharmacist, but you can't even handle such a small matter. Guli wanted to say something, but Han Shuo had already left with Saint. Naturally, Andrina followed closely behind Han Shuo. Andre immediately mobilized his army. The House of Saint was a powerful force. Very soon, they had gathered nearly 100 family divine guards. Every one of them possessed mid-god strength. Andre used a magic crystal device to contact Erebus and asked him to lead the divine guards of the Third Corps. The party rapidly headed towards the God Swamp Pharmacy. By the time Hanshaw, Andre, and the others arrived, they discovered that Erebus had already arrived with nearly 100 mid-gods of the Third Corps. At this moment, they had surrounded the God Swamp Pharmacy. "My lords, what's going on? Why have you surrounded our shop in the middle of the night? Could it be that there's something wrong with those pharmacists who attended the banquet?" Many of the God Swamp Pharmacy's divine guards who were guarding the entrance were not aware of the actual situation in the God Swamp Pharmacy. In the City of Shadows, the House of Saint was the absolute ruler. It had been a long time since the House of Saint dispatched hundreds of divine guards at once. This meant that something major must have happened. Although the divine guards were panic-stricken, none of them dared to step forward to stop them. "Without my command, no one is to leave the God Swamp Pharmacy. Anyone who tries to escape will be killed on the spot." Andre's left eye had turned dark purple. He commanded the divine guards behind him in a cold and sinister manner. Without even looking at the God Swamp Pharmacy divine guard who spoke, Andre, Erebus, and Andre barged into the building. None of the God Swamp Pharmacy divine guards dared to stop them. "Take control of every building inside and block all the entrances. Don't let a single person leave." After entering the God Swamp Pharmacy, the effeminate-looking chief of the Third Corps, Erebus, immediately instructed the Third Corps divine guards beside him. Those Third Corps divine guards followed his order and spread out. Like ghostly shadows under a curtain of darkness, they flew towards different areas of God Swamp Pharmacy. Andre and Erebus each led a team of divine guards and headed straight for the largest building. Hanshaw and Andrina silently followed behind them. The dwarf Stice rushed over after hearing the commotion. He stood in front of the building in a flustered manner and asked, "Lord Andre, Lord Erebus, what's going on? Why did you come all the way to the God Swamp Pharmacy? Is there something wrong with our actions?" Stice, on the other hand, was very good at acting. Hanshaw couldn't find a single flaw on his face. He could see the panic on his face, but he couldn't detect his guilty conscience. After coldly sizing up Stice, Hanshaw immediately realized that this person wasn't an easy character to deal with. "Your God Swamp Pharmacy attacked Ghoulie, a visiting pharmacist, and used poison. Ghoulie said that your God Swamp Pharmacy hid divine organs and used living humans to refine poison. This is a grave matter. We had no choice but to come and get to the bottom of this," Erebus said in a deep voice. "I'm being wrongly accused," Stice cried out in alarm. "How could our God Swamp Pharmacy do such a thing? We have always been law-abiding in the City of Shadows for so many years. We have paid the required crystal coins and have always acted according to the rules. How could we do such a thing? That Ghoulie must be holding a grudge against us for not helping her deal with Mr. Bryan of the Celestial Pro Pharmacy. That's why she is slandering us. What a troublesome character." Andre came to a conclusion in his heart. This fellow seemed to have been prepared for this. His words were flawless. Andre's intentional exclamation also startled the alchemists from various cities who had come over for the exchange. One by one, they walked out of their rooms and came over to watch, their hearts filled with doubt. Just like Ghoulie, these pharmacists came from various cities in the Darkness Dominion. Some even came from the Death and Destruction Dominions. Pharmacists possessed extraordinary identities. If Andre were to arrest them without any evidence, the reputation of the City of Shadows would certainly be affected. If the gods of the various cities felt that the City Lord of the City of Shadows acted according to his whims, it would be detrimental to the City of Shadows' trade and other aspects. Although Stice's shrieks seemed unintentional, it put Andre, Erebus, and the others in a very disadvantageous position. If they failed to find the culprit in the God Swamp Pharmacy, not only would they not be able to do anything to the God Swamp Pharmacy, they might even be blamed by all parties. With that, Andre and Erebus's hearts sank. They thought to themselves that this Stice was indeed treacherous. If we can prove that the God Swamp Pharmacy has nothing to do with this matter, rest assured, we will punish Ghoulie severely. However, this matter is of grave importance, and we have to treat it with utmost caution. Please cooperate with us. As the number 2 character of the House of Saint, Andre was definitely not an easy character to deal with. He immediately blocked Guli's path and pushed all the blame to her. He said that the poison was an extremely important matter and that his actions were not inappropriate. As citizens of the City of Shadows, we will naturally cooperate with you. My lords, please feel free to investigate. If there is anything wrong with the Godswamp Pharmacy, as the owner of the Godswamp Pharmacy in the City of Shadows, I will immediately commit suicide as an apology," said Stice in a righteous manner. Anyone who didn't know better would not suspect that there was anything wrong with the Godswamp Pharmacy just by looking at him. Oh no, everything must have been moved away. Andre and Erebus exchanged glances with each other. Their faces immediately sank. Both of them were wily old foxes. After hearing Stice's fearless assurance, they knew that they wouldn't be able to find anything in the Godswamp Pharmacy. They had underestimated the Godswamp Pharmacy's capabilities. They did not expect that they could evacuate everything in such a short period of time. Search carefully. Andre and Erebus had no choice but to summon up their courage and give the order. As soon as those words were uttered, shadows flew out from the darkness. They shuttled back and forth between the buildings of the Godswamp Pharmacy like specters. My lords, we didn't find anything wrong here. My lords, we didn't find anything wrong here either. My lords, everything is normal. The shadows returned to Erebus and Andre's side and expressed that they had not found anything. My lords, we at the Godswamp Pharmacy have always done things according to the rules. We would never dare to do anything that would incur the wrath of man and God. Please, my lords, investigate this. Stice suddenly cowed out on the ground and put on an aggrieved face. Upon finishing those words, he took out his space ring and said, My lords, if you don't believe me, you can check our space rings. If there is anything wrong, we, the people of the Godswamp Pharmacy, are willing to pay with our lives. Those divine organs had to be stored in ice. Some poisons also had to be kept at a special temperature. It was impossible for the temperature of the space ring to be different from one another. Therefore, there couldn't be anything in the space ring. Stice did all that just to prove that he was innocent. How could the Godswamp Pharmacy do that? The Godswamp Pharmacy has a good reputation in the Darkness Dominion. The City of Shadows must have made a mistake and acted recklessly. Really, I didn't expect that the divine guards of the City of Shadows would be so impudent. Aren't they accusing innocent people? Who would dare to sell their medicines in the City of Shadows in the future? Yeah, there's clearly nothing. Why would they come here in the middle of the night? I think Guli is just talking nonsense. That old hag was humiliated the last time. Seeing that the Godswamp Pharmacy didn't back her up, she harbored a grudge and deliberately took revenge. That must be it. The surrounding pharmacists who had come from various large cities were discussing with sarcasm. These people were rather prestigious in their respective cities. Their remarks could have an immeasurable impact on the City of Shadows. Andre and Erebus put on bitter smiles in their minds. They felt that they were in a difficult position. The two had underestimated the power of the Godswamp Pharmacy. They did not expect that the Godswamp Pharmacy would be so powerful that it could remove all the unclean items in just an hour. My lords, you must be mistaken. Guli harbors a grudge against us and has maliciously spread such malicious rumors. This is an unforgivable crime. Please uphold justice for us, my lords. Stice cried out in grievance. However, he was sneering in his heart. Do you really think that the Godswamp Pharmacy is just a small shop? This? Andre put on a bitter smile. He no longer dared to look down on this dwarf. After hearing Stice's words, he decided to find a way out of this embarrassing situation. He planned to return to the Godswamp Pharmacy and investigate the matter in secret. Lord Andre, I smell a very strange odor in the air. This odor contains traces of poison. I believe that Guli is right. If Lord Andre trusts me, I can lead you to continue searching through these odors. Perhaps you will find something. Just as Andre and Erebus were about to step down from the stage, Han Shaw, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. Impossible. What are you talking about? There's no smell of poison in the air. If there was, we would have smelled it long ago. There are so many pharmacists around and we didn't even notice it. Are you the only one who can do that? A pharmacist jumped up and criticized Han Shuo. That's right. You're still young. Don't spout nonsense at such a crucial time. Even if you want to be in the limelight, you should look at the situation clearly. Another pharmacist shouted angrily. Han Shuo said that he could smell poison in the air. However, none of the pharmacists present said anything. Didn't this prove that Han Shuo was better than all the pharmacists present? With that, the pharmacists were naturally unhappy. They jumped up and accused Han Shuo of spouting nonsense. Han Shuo was spouting nonsense. However, his demon king had already investigated the situation. It wasn't difficult for him to use this excuse to find the target, saying that was purely an excuse to continue the operation. Fine. If you really find something unclean, my promise just now remains unchanged. I will still commit suicide as an apology. Stice naturally didn't believe it either. He had been looking for an opportunity to deal with Han Shuo. Now that Han Shuo had delivered himself to his doorstep, he was truly overjoyed. However, his face was full of anger as he roared. But what if you slander me and can't find anything? I'm also willing to commit suicide as an apology. Han Shuo said decisively with a cold smile on his face. Brian? Andre was originally prepared to take the opportunity to step down. However, after hearing Han Shuo's words, he was somewhat uncertain. He had an extremely good impression of Han Shuo. He didn't want anything to happen to Han Shuo. Brian, don't mess around. Erebus was also concerned about Han Shuo. He anxiously winked at Han Shuo as a hint. Commit suicide as an apology. This was no joking matter. With so many pharmacists present and Andre and Erebus as witnesses, if Han Shuo couldn't find anything, nobody could change the situation. Suddenly, Han Shuo's left hand tightened. He lowered his head and found that Andrina was also looking at him cautiously. She shook her head at him, hinting at Han Shuo not to act recklessly. Fine. Our God Swamp Pharmacy is upright and not afraid of your slander. Go ahead and investigate. We will follow. As long as we can prove that this matter is related to our God Swamp Pharmacy, I will not shirk my responsibility. Stice laughed heartily after hearing those words. He appeared to be full of heroic spirit and was truly open and above board. Andre hesitated when he saw Stice's confidence. He didn't expect things to go out of control like this. He began to worry about Han Shuo. With that thought in mind, Andre looked worriedly at Han Shuo. However, he saw Han Shuo smiling confidently and nodding at him discreetly, indicating that he was confident. Andre, who was still hesitating, suddenly recalled the confident smile on Han Shuo's face. When Han Shuo asked everyone to leave before rescuing Carmelita at the Saint residence, Han Shuo also wore this confident and somewhat arrogant smile. For some unknown reason, perhaps because he recalled that Carmelita was safe and sound, Andre unexpectedly chose to believe in Han Shuo. Under everyone's gaze, Andre nodded and said in a deep voice, All right, Brian, you lead the way. If you prove that you are spouting nonsense, I will not let you off easily. Andre did not say that he wanted Han Shuo to commit suicide as an apology. It was obvious that he was trying to protect Han Shuo. Stice sneered in his mind. How could he not see that Andre was trying to protect Han Shuo? However, after Han Shuo said those words in front of so many people, even if Andre didn't kill him, Stice believed that Han Shuo wouldn't have the face to continue living. Stice became even more excited when he thought that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy, his greatest threat, would be eliminated tonight. He thought to himself, I didn't expect things to be so interesting tonight. All I have to do is add fuel to the fire, and I believe that those pharmacists will spread rumors about the House of Saints' tyrannical and unreasonable conduct in every city. This will be in line with Master's desire to deal with the House of Saint. Master will be overjoyed. Everyone, follow me! Han Shuo sneered in his mind. He thought to himself, if I don't screw with your God Swamp Pharmacy this time, I will remove your name from the City of Shadows. Then I will prove that I'm better than all of you as a pharmacist. Who in the City of Shadows will dare to doubt my abilities in the future? The party followed Han Shu in a majestic manner, each with their own little plans, as they began the magical search. Chapter 722. In the dead of night, the group of divine guards who were patrolling from the God Swamp Pharmacy attracted the attention of even more divine guards. Some of those divine guards were from major family clans. When they saw that Andre and Erebus were in the group and hundreds of divine guards were dispatched, they immediately realized that something major had happened in the City of Shadows. Soon, the patriarchs of the other 4 major family clans received the news. None of them dared to lower their guard and sent experts from their family clans to spy on the situation. Soon, experts from the other 4 major family clans joined the search with all kinds of excuses. After learning what was going on, they followed the group and showed great interest in the matter. Andre and Erebus were having a headache. They had underestimated the power of the God Swamp Pharmacy. They did not expect that the situation would develop to such an extent. By now, the other 4 major family clans had secretly followed the group. As Han Shu had announced that if Han Shu couldn't find any evidence, even if Andre wanted to protect Han Shu, he wouldn't be able to do so. Stice was not alarmed when he saw that the 4 major family clans had arrived. With so many witnesses, Andre and Erebus surely wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Even the heavens are on my side. Brian, how much longer do we have to go? Stice asked Han Shu, who had suddenly stopped in his tracks. They were at a crossroad that led to 4 blocks. Han Shu did not hurry forward but bunched his brows and pondered. Everyone's gazes were on Han Shu, waiting for Han Shu to make his move. This way. Han Shu twitched his nose and pretended to sniff. He pointed at a street and led the way. Stice, who had been wearing a cold smile all this time, had a slight change in his expression. The items that he had moved were indeed in that direction. He felt that something was amiss. He must have guessed it. Don't worry, Stice consoled himself. Mr. Stice doesn't look too good. Are you getting scared? Han Shu had been secretly observing Stice. When he saw the slight change in Stice's expression, he immediately mocked. Ha ha! Stice laughed and said, Me? Scared? What am I scared of? You should be the one who's afraid. Han Shu nodded with a smile and turned away from Stice. He said to Andre and Erebus, Let's hurry up. It's almost daybreak. It's better to solve the problem as soon as possible. Okay. Andre didn't know where Han Shu got his confidence from, but he still nodded. Han Shu suddenly sped up and headed straight for the dirtiest and most chaotic street in the City of Shadows. Andre, Erebus, and the others hastily followed behind him. Those from the major family clans also followed behind. Rudrasi of the House of Kisa had heard the whole story after arriving. When he learned that the poison in Guli's body was exactly the same as the poison in that divine guard of his House of Kisa, he started sizing up Stice with a gloomy expression. No one knew what he was planning. Jia of the House of Kinson came with her uncle Faisli. Tuyas of the House of Buller came with a small team of Buller divine guards. These people were all secretly discussing the matter. Naturally, the topic of their discussion would always be Han Shu. Those from the Lavers family were Han Shu's old friends, Dana, and her brother Dewey. As she heard that the matter was related to Han Shu, she immediately rushed over. Dewey also felt that the atmosphere in the City of Shadows wasn't quite right lately and was worried about Dana. Is that youngster courting death? So many pharmacists couldn't sniff out the odor, but he can? Experts from all the family clans have gathered here. If he can't find any evidence, even Andre won't be able to protect him. Sister, you know him. Don't you think there's something wrong with his head? Dewey asked Dana beside him in a disdainful manner. With all 5 major family clans of the City of Shadows here, this matter was destined to become the hottest topic in the City of Shadows in the future. Of all those present, only Andre had some confidence in Han Shu. However, he was still feeling apprehensive. He kept thinking about what he should do if Han Shaw couldn't find any evidence. He was having a huge headache. If there was one person among these people who truly had confidence in Han Shaw, it would be Donna. "There's something wrong with his head?" Donna sneered and shook her head. She said, "If there's something wrong with Brian's head, then everyone who came here today is a retard. Including myself." Donna softly sighed when she saw Dewey's astonished face. She explained, "I have known Brian for a long time. I know him better than any of you. Since he is so confident, he must be very confident. Brother, the God Swamp Pharmacy is finished. No one can save them if they dare to do such a thing. I have long warned Uncle Avery not to get too close to the God Swamp Pharmacy. I hope he won't drag our family clan into this." You trust him that much? How can you be so sure?" Dewey's face was filled with disbelief. He softly cried out, "This youngster is just a low god. Even if he is a pharmacist, how much can he accomplish at such a young age? Sister, have you lost your mind? This has nothing to do with strength. Just keep watching." Donna knew that Dewey wouldn't believe her no matter how much she explained. She paused for a moment before she added, "Perhaps Brian's strength isn't what we know. This fella isn't something that ordinary people can imagine. Sigh, how did we end up like this? All right. Let's see how he conjures poison," Dewey sneered. The veins on Stice's forehead twitched. Sweat had unwittingly moistened the back of his lapel. As he got closer and closer to that area, the fear in Stice's heart intensified. At this moment, when Stice looked at Han Shu again, there was no longer a trace of complacency in his heart. There was only boundless fear. How could it be? How could he know? It can't be. It must be a coincidence. It must be a coincidence. Stice comforted himself over and over again. However, the sweat on his face increased and his footsteps became more unsteady. "All right, this should be the place," Han Shaw said in a low voice when he arrived in front of a few dilapidated buildings. Stice's body swayed and he nearly fell on his butt. When he raised his head to look at the buildings that seemed to have been abandoned for a long time, the fear in his heart intensified. "Eh? Mr. Stice, you seem to be sweating. Hee, the weather is very cool. It can't be that hot, right? Besides, you are also a low god. How could you be affected by this kind of weather?" Han Shaw cried out in astonishment. He pointed at Stice as though he had discovered a new continent. When the crowd followed Han Shaw's gaze, they immediately discovered that Stice was behaving strangely. The eyes of those old foxes were getting weirder and weirder. Hee, I have been studying medicine refinement, and have neglected my cultivation for a long time. Everyone is walking too fast, and it is rather strenuous for me to keep up. That's why I'm sweating. It's normal," Stice hastily explained with a somewhat forced smile. This was the poorest street block in the City of Shadows. Those living in the vicinity were the most impoverished gods. Most of them were base gods or demigods. Their strength was meager. Anyone with a little bit of wealth would not come to this place. The disciples of major family clans would even less so because this place held no attraction for them. As far as the eye could see, the buildings here were dilapidated. No one was cleaning up the garbage and dirty water. The air was filled with a sour stench. Beautiful women such as Donna and Gia were covering their noses with one hand and waving the other around. It seemed that they were very fed up with this place. "Brian, everyone is looking at you. Hee, can you hurry up?" Gia urged with a big smile on her face while covering her nose with one hand. Those who didn't know her might think that she had some kind of relationship with Han Shaw. This caused several disciples of major family clans who admired her to glare fiercely at Han Shaw. "That's right, I'm also looking at you." Stice forced a smile, and also urged Han Shaw. He also covered his nose with one hand to conceal the fear on his face. He mumbled to himself, "How did you find such a place? It's too filthy. Let's just admit defeat and leave this place as soon as possible. I don't think anyone can wait any longer." "So what if I found the place?" This place is covered with layers of concealment boundaries and is buried deep underground. There's no way you can find the entrance. Stice encouraged himself. He was afraid that if he didn't do so, others would see through his lies. No hurry. We can wait. Hee. I can stay here even if the environment is 10 times dirtier. Erebus had long noticed the strange expression on Stice's face. That's right. We can wait as long as we can prove it. Ridgersy's voice was ice cold as he said fiercely. He looked at Stice with eyes full of savagery. After arriving here, many people could see that Stice was behaving strangely. Their faces turned gloomy as they waited in silence. Mr. Stice, do you think that the things are hidden underground and I can't find them? After arriving at this place, Han Shaw had completely relaxed. He looked at Stice smilingly, and slowly tortured him. Nonsense! Nonsense! Stice was startled. He put on a fierce front and said with a strange smile, Are you deliberately stalling for time? Lord Andre, Lord Erebus, please look after him. Han Shaw nodded at Andre and Erebus, intentionally sighed, and said in a pitiful tone, As pharmacists, instead of spending your energy on saving people, you spend it on killing and harming others. You will be punished for your actions that incur the wrath of man and God. You. Stice pointed at Han Shaw. It was unknown whether he was afraid or angry. He couldn't finish his sentence. There's a large pharmaceutical warehouse 30 meters underground. I'll have to trouble you two lords to help me. Han Shaw bowed at Andre and Erebus and said with a smile. Plop. Stice fell on his butt. He no longer had any confidence. Han Shaw had accurately said that 30 meters underground. Stice knew that he was done for. He was also afraid of death. When he knew that he was about to face death, all the perseverance he had built up along the way was instantly destroyed. He couldn't bear it anymore. As matters stood, there was no longer a need to investigate further. Just by looking at Stice's helplessness and fear, anyone with eyes that weren't blind would know the truth. Seize him! Andre shouted. Several divine guards swarmed over and immediately restrained Stice. Everyone from God's Swamp Pharmacy, stay where you are or you will be killed! Erebus shouted in an ice-cold and merciless voice. Impossible! You can't possibly smell it with your nose. I have cleaned it all up. None of the pharmacists there could have done it! Stice cried out in despair as he looked at Han Shaw. He knew that he couldn't escape death. You are talking about them? Han Shaw pointed at those pharmacists who had been following him. He sneered and said, They are all mediocre. I've told you before that these so-called pharmacists' gatherings are just a bunch of people with undeserved reputations. You. Those pharmacists who had opposed Han Shaw earlier were so infuriated that they nearly vomited blood. They pointed at Han Shaw but couldn't say a word. Han Shaw had proven that he could smell poison just by relying on his nose, and from such a great distance. In this aspect, he had already proven that his skill was clearly superior to anyone else's. Those pharmacists were pointed at their noses and scolded, but because the truth was right in front of them, they simply couldn't find any words to refute. Those from major family clans in the City of Shadows looked at those pharmacists with gazes full of disdain. Some of them even said in a low voice, All of them are so weak and yet they are shameless enough to participate in a pharmacists' conference. Sigh, there are so many shameless people. Yeah, they don't have any real skills. In the future we will just have to buy medicines from the Celestial Pro Pharmacy. As for the other shops, it's fine even if we don't go. Maybe they will sell poisons like the God Swamp Pharmacy. Another person chimed in. We're done for by the God Swamp Pharmacy. All the pharmacists were panic-stricken. When they saw the disdain on the faces of the members of major family clans, they realized that they could no longer stay in the City of Shadows. Be it the pharmacists in the City of Shadows or those who came from other cities to participate in the conference, under the disdainful gazes of the crowd, all of them turned around and left in shame. They vanished in the blink of an eye. Not a single one of them dared to stay and be humiliated. Did you see that? Donna glanced at Dewey, who wore a face full of disbelief, and said in a soft voice, How is this possible? How did he do it? Dewey's eyes were filled with shock when he looked at Han Sho again. There was not the slightest trace of disdain in his eyes. I tried my best to recruit him into my family clan from the very beginning. You all thought that I was giving him face. Little did you know that I was begging him. Now you know his value, don't you? But it's too late. Otherwise, if he had joined our family clan, our House of Lavers would surely be much stronger than the other 3 major family clans. It's too late for regrets now. Sigh. Donna let out a long sigh. Dewey was a little embarrassed. He had thought that Han Sho was deliberately trying to curry favor with Donna and desperately trying to join the House of Lavers. He had seen too many people like Han Sho. Therefore, he did not have a good attitude towards Han Sho from the very beginning. It was only at this moment that he realized that he was wrong, gravely wrong. It was a pity that Han Sho did not refine medicine of regret. Otherwise, Dewey would have been willing to buy it at a high price. Chapter 723. At the first glimmer of dawn, Andre and Erebus broke through 7 layers of barriers in a row and finally found the underground tunnel. The divine guards that the 2 brought with them pounced towards the underground tunnel like hungry wolves. Soon enough, they captured 15 pharmacists who refined poisons. Naturally, all the dirty things that were transferred over were seized. Having been caught red-handed, Stice was unable to defend himself. He knew that he would not be able to escape death, so he hung his head and did not say a word. So it was you who did this. You have destroyed my friendship with Mr. Bryan. You deserve to die, Rudrisi said through gnashed teeth as he looked at Stice coldly. It was because of the God Swamp Pharmacy that Han Sho had a very bad impression of the House of Kisa. Now that Han Sho had proven that he was better than any pharmacist, no one dared to doubt the effectiveness of the Celestial Pro Pharmacy. At a time when everyone was fighting for the Celestial Pro Pharmacy, Rudrisi had offended Han Sho because of the God Swamp Pharmacy. The rage in his heart was uncontrollable. If it weren't for Andre and Erebus, Rudrisi would have killed Stice. The members of the major family clans who came to watch felt that the trip was not in vain. When they saw with their own eyes the frozen glassware being carried out from the underground tunnel, their faces turned ugly. The God Swamp Pharmacy had committed such an atrocity right under their noses. Not to mention that each of the 4 major family clans had a chief of divine guards. This was a slap to the faces of the 5 major family clans. Stice, what do you have to say now? Andre glared at Stice and coldly shouted. Now that things have come to this, I have nothing to say. Stice knew that he would not be able to escape death. He took out a dagger glittering with cold light, and was ready to commit suicide on the spot. Clang! Andre flicked his index finger. A dark light flashed, and the dagger flew out of Stice's hand. Before we get to the bottom of the matter, it won't be that easy for you to die. Andre coldly groaned and shouted. Capture him and put him on death row! Erebus too waved his hand. The divine guards of the 3rd Corps rushed out. Not only did they capture the toxicologists, they also captured those experts from the God Swamp Pharmacy. Bryan, I owe you another favor, said Andre smilingly to Han Sho after seeing that all the experts from the God Swamp Pharmacy had been captured. It's only right. I didn't think too much about it when the God Swamp Pharmacy attacked me first. How could I have known that they would do such atrocities behind my back? Han Sho was in a great mood. The God Swamp Pharmacy was done for, and he had seized the opportunity to make a name for himself. From now on, all the major family clans in the City of Shadows would know which pharmacy was the best. Everyone, this matter has come to an end for now. Please return. Andre smiled and informed everyone. Then, he said in a low voice, wait for a while. I have something to tell you later. Han Sho didn't understand what Andre meant. He nodded in puzzlement and stayed. After Andre called out to him, the experts from the large family clans in the City of Shadows bid farewell to him smilingly. They were even more impressed with Han Shuo's pharmaceutical refining skills. Before leaving, they tried to befriend Han Shuo in a very friendly manner. They only left contentedly when Han Shuo expressed that he would provide them with new medicines. Brian, I'm really sorry that we didn't get to the bottom of the matter. You are a magnanimous person and do not hold a grudge against a lowly person. This. Rudjasi came to Han Shuo's side awkwardly and said while rubbing his hands. Although I'm not a person who holds grudges, I'm definitely not in a good mood after what happened just now. I'm sorry, but I have no interest in doing business with your family clan for the time being. Han Shuo shrugged and said without the slightest politeness. Rudjasi knew that he had to take things slowly. He had just offended Han Shuo during the day and Han Shuo must still be furious. It seemed that he couldn't afford to be impatient. With that thought in mind, Rudjasi had no choice but to put on a flattering smile and persuade Han Shuo in every possible way before leaving with his men. Dana and Dewey were the last to leave. After those people left, Dana looked at Han Shuo as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. After pondering for a moment, Dana decided not to say anything to salvage the relationship between the two. She looked at Han Shuo, sighed softly, and left with Dewey. Han Shuo understood that Dana still suspected that he was the one who killed Cage and Dewey. He too sighed in his heart, and did not say anything. However, Dewey, who used to be very arrogant and haughty towards him, nodded at him with a smile. It was as though he was expressing goodwill towards Han Shuo. This surprised Han Shuo a little. Erebus, escort these people back to the Third Corps. I will go over after I have a few words with Brian, Andre said to Erebus smilingly. Erebus nodded, walked to Han Shuo's side, patted on Han Shuo's shoulder, and softly said, Youngster, you are quite interesting. Upon finishing those words, Erebus led his divine guards and escorted those from God Swamp Pharmacy away. Although Erebus could be considered a member of the House of Saint, he was not a member of the House of Saint, and had no blood relationship with Andre. He was an expert recruited by Wallace with his own strength and means. In the City of Shadows, Erebus could be considered a tyrant. But in the end, he was just a high-grade divine guard of the House of Saint. Although he only answered to Wallace, he still had to heed Andre's orders. Soon enough, Erebus and his group of divine guards escorted those from God Swamp Pharmacy away. A portion of those divine guards who had followed Andre from the Saint residence had also left. The remaining 30 or so divine guards were scattered all over the city, secretly protecting Andre. Lord Andre, what can I do for you? Han Shuo was rather puzzled and asked. You have saved Carmelita twice and this time, you have helped us uncover the evidence of the God Swamp Pharmacy's crimes. I haven't been able to find the opportunity to thank you. Now, I finally have the chance, Andre said in a gentle smile. Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment before he shook his head and smilingly replied. Lord Andre, what are you talking about? It was all thanks to Lord Andre and Miss Carmelita that I was able to establish the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy in the City of Shadows so quickly. There are some things that I will remember even if you don't mention it. My lord, you don't have to thank me specifically. Of course, Andre replied smilingly. After thinking for a moment, he continued. After this incident, the God Swamp Pharmacy is completely finished. According to the rules, all the buildings and properties owned by the God Swamp Pharmacy will be confiscated. Although the God Swamp Pharmacy's foundation in the City of Shadows has been destroyed, their buildings and medicine refinement equipment are still very valuable. There are hundreds and thousands of medicine refinement equipment, and a large number of medicine refinement books in those buildings. These are enormous resources for any pharmacy. Han Shuo's heart skipped a beat. He could hardly contain the excitement in his heart. He cried out in surprise. Lord Andre, you mean? Andre nodded and said, The House of Saint doesn't know how to refine medicine. Those resources are useless to us. They will be auctioned off to other pharmacies sooner or later. Rather than letting someone else take advantage of you, for example, your Celestial Pearl Pharmacy has already made a name for itself. As long as you take over some of the resources from the former God Swamp Pharmacy, I believe it will only be a matter of time before the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy becomes the largest pharmacy in the City of Shadows. Han Sho finally understood the wonderful meaning of the saying, "It's always cool under a big tree." Although the God Swamp Pharmacy was completely finished, the God Swamp Pharmacy occupied an enormous amount of resources in the City of Shadows. Not only in the City of Shadows, but also in many of the forts and towns under the City of Shadows. If Han Sho were to change the name of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy, his Celestial Pearl Pharmacy would become the largest pharmacy in the City of Shadows overnight. What did it mean for the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy to take over all the resources of the God Swamp Pharmacy? It was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Under normal circumstances, it would take Han Sho 10 years or even 100 years for the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy to reach the level of the God Swamp Pharmacy in the City of Shadows. But with Andre's help, the time needed would be shortened by at least 100 times. How could Han Sho not be excited? This is too valuable. Han Sho rubbed his hands and did not know what to say. Who asked you to prove in front of those fellas that you are better than all pharmacists? Just you wait, those fellas will immediately spread what happened tonight to the entire City of Shadows. This is the best publicity. The God Swamp Pharmacy's reputation is completely ruined. Only by accepting the God Swamp Pharmacy can those resources be put to good use. Andre said smilingly. Lord Andre, since you have put it that way, I shall not stand on ceremony. Thank you. Han Sho bowed respectfully. I will go back and inform my elder brother. When everything is settled, I will let you know. Also, prepare a sum of crystal coins. We still need to collect some crystal coins to prevent our family members from gossiping. Andre thought for a moment and continued. Not too much, just a few tens of thousands of black crystal coins. We can talk about it later. Those few buildings of the God Swamp Pharmacy were worth at least 1 million black crystal coins. Adding the pharmaceutical information and the branches all over the City of Shadows, the total value would be no less than 5 million black crystal coins. But judging from Andre's words, he would not ask Han Sho to fork out that much gold coins. This was like a pie falling from the sky. Got it. Han Sho nodded with a silly smile. Also, you have offended more than half of the pharmacists in the City of Shadows today. Those pharmacists from the God Swamp family will hate you to the bone. Those pharmacists who have nothing to do with this matter, even if they are acquitted, they will not work for you. The God Swamp Pharmacy is too big for you to handle alone. You will need a lot of talents. You will have to solve this problem by yourself, Andre reminded. Han Sho could not help but smile bitterly after hearing those words. He started to get a headache. What happened today would surely spread throughout the City of Shadows. Most of the people in the God Swamp Pharmacy were not involved in the business of selling poison. Therefore, they would not be punished by the House of Saint. However, to many of them, Han Sho was an enemy of the God Swamp Pharmacy. It would be a huge problem for them to work for Han Sho. The God Swamp Pharmacy had a huge foundation and needed a lot of pharmacists, and all kinds of talents. If Han Sho could not handle all of this, even if he obtained all the resources from the God Swamp Pharmacy, he would not be able to develop the God Swamp Pharmacy well. What a headache! Han Sho was feeling both pain and happiness. He had started to rack his brain for a solution. Andre patted Han Sho's shoulder and said with a smile, You'll have to think of a way on your own in this regard. I can help you. Who told you to offend all the pharmacists in a moment of excitement today? You youngster, you are good at everything, but you can't stand being bullied. How could I have known that you would hand over the remaining assets of the God Swamp Pharmacy to me? If I had known, I would have swallowed my anger. Han Sho sighed and forced a smile. All right, I'll be leaving now. I really can't help you with the matters regarding pharmacists. After all, we can't force them to do these things. You just have to put in more effort. At most, you can train your own pharmacists. With your skills, you think no one will be willing to come and learn from you? Andre laughed and left with a group of divine guards. I have to really know how to refine medicine, thought Han Sho. He was starting to worry about such a huge foundation. You have struck it rich! Andrina, who would usually remain silent when there were outsiders around, immediately started to congratulate Han Shuo after everyone left. Yes, I have struck it rich. But I have to take care of things first. Otherwise, I won't be able to prosper even if I have enormous resources but no one to use them, said Han Shuo mischievously with a big smile on his face. In his heart, Han Shuo was very excited. Compared to the sudden profits of a snake swallowing an elephant, this difficulty was totally worth it. Don't think I can't tell, said Andrina disdainfully. But soon after, she giggled and said excitedly, You are going to make a lot of money this time. I won't have to worry about not having enough crystal coins in the future, right? Han Shuo's face darkened. He hastily said, You still have to control yourself. No amount of crystal coins will be enough for you to eat the way you eat. But I can guarantee that you will eat more than you do now, provided that I can earn enough crystal coins. Hee, I believe you. It seems that I have followed the right person, said Andrina happily. The sky was completely bright. Han Shuo and Andrina chatted as they walked. Very soon, they returned to the Celestial Pro Pharmacy. After entering the Celestial Pro Pharmacy, he felt that it was too small no matter how he looked at it. When he thought about the enormous amount of resources he would soon possess, he was both excited and vexed at the same time. For 5 days in a row, the entire City of Shadows was talking about what happened that night. As expected, Han Shuo's reputation surpassed that of all pharmacists. He became the well-deserving #1 pharmacist in the City of Shadows. Many people knew about him. The God Swamp Pharmacy was temporarily shut down. All the pharmacists were interrogated. Andre arrested some and released some. Many of those who came to the City of Shadows to attend the conference left the City of Shadows one after another after being humiliated by Han Shuo. Meanwhile, Han Shuo was busy recruiting pharmacists. With Anaito's help, recruitment scrolls were posted at various conspicuous places in the City of Shadows, attracting the attention of many. However, as Han Shuo had offended almost all the pharmacists in the City of Shadows, not a single person showed up after posting the recruitment scrolls. Naturally, those pharmacists from the God Swamp Pharmacy did not have a good impression of Han Shuo. They started spreading rumors that Han Shuo acted alone and considered everyone beneath him. Han Shuo's recruitment efforts suffered a great setback. There were those who were interested in the art of medicine refinement who came to the Celestial Pro Pharmacy, hoping to be apprenticed to Han Shuo. However, as Han Shuo knew nothing about medicine refinement, there was no way he could teach anyone. He might even expose himself. Therefore, all of them were turned down. After a few more days, there was still no proficient pharmacist. Han Shuo began to have a headache. Seeing that Han Shuo was at his wit's end, she advised, Don't worry, just wait a little longer. How unlucky! Andrina was also very concerned about the matter. In order to gobble up more crystal coins, she had been busy posting recruitment scrolls with Anaito. She advised when she saw that Han Shuo was at his wit's end. It's all my fault. Otherwise, I wouldn't have offended so many pharmacists. How unlucky! Han Shuo was having a headache. He felt as though he had come to a mountain of gold but did not bring his space ring with him. Seeing that Andre was about to finish dealing with the God Swamp Pharmacy, and that the enormous God Swamp Pharmacy would soon be Han Shuo's, Han Shuo felt aggrieved. Akeley was just as concerned about Han Shuo's affairs. Unfortunately, he could not be of any help to Han Shuo in this matter. All he knew was to bring up the idea of abducting a pharmacist. After being scolded by Han Shuo for a bit, Akeley calmed down and no longer cared about what Han Shuo was up to. This isn't going to work. Han Shuo sighed again. Han Shuo only knew how to refine medicinal pellets. However, his ability was limited. In addition, medicinal pellets were extremely expensive, and not many people could afford them. Therefore, the God Swamp Pharmacy's ordinary medicines were the key to making money. Han Shuo had long recognized this point. Therefore, he definitely needed experienced pharmacists. Ahem! A voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. Then, the eccentric Ghoulie slowly walked in. Han Shuo, who was originally delighted, immediately turned gloomy when he saw Ghoulie. He said with a cold face, "What are you doing here?" Han Shuo had been in a bad mood recently. He had no interest in fooling around with Ghoulie. He stood up and was about to chase her away. "Aren't you recruiting pharmacists?" Ghoulie asked puzzledly as she pointed at the recruitment scrolls in front of the door. "Yes. But what does that have to do with you?" Han Shuo did not seem to be in a good mood. "Do you think I can do it?" Ghoulie asked cautiously. Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment. He asked, "You mean, you want to join our Celestial Pro Pharmacy?" "That's right. I have heard about what happened last time. You are indeed an amazing pharmacist. I apologize for my rashness back then and thank you for saving my life. I am here in the hope of learning some medicine refinement techniques from you. I hope that you will grant me my wish." Ghoulie bowed respectfully and said in a serious manner, "Isn't your business in the City of Shadows? I heard that you have a lot of apprentices. Are you willing to stay in the City of Shadows?" Han Shuo's heart skipped a beat. "As long as I can learn more about medicine refinement, I am willing to pay any price. As for my apprentices, if you don't mind, can they all join the Celestial Pro Pharmacy?" Ghoulie asked. "Of course, why not? That's great." Han Shuo was just worrying about not being able to find anyone. He was overjoyed when he heard Ghoulie's offer. Although he was having a headache about how to teach Ghoulie medicine refinement techniques, he couldn't care less at this point in time. Chapter 724. Time flew by and another half a month had passed. The God Swamp Pharmacy was rather influential in the Darkness Dominion. Although the God Swamp Pharmacy in the City of Shadows had been completely destroyed, the House of Saints' control over the God Swamp Pharmacy was limited to the City of Shadows and its vassals. In the Darkness Dominion, there were 7 cities of the same scale as the City of Shadows. The God Swamp Pharmacy's headquarters was located in Hushvale City, and the House of Saints' influence was limited to the other cities. The true master of the God Swamp Pharmacy blamed Stice for everything that happened in the City of Shadows. He claimed that he knew nothing about it, and that it was Stice who made the decision on his own, and that it had nothing to do with the God Swamp Pharmacy. In addition, he strongly condemned the House of Saints' actions and claimed that the House of Saint had no right to confiscate all the God Swamp Pharmacy's resources in the City of Shadows. He demanded that the House of Saint return everything to him. However, Andre obviously wouldn't listen to him. He posted notices in every district of the City of Shadows, spreading the God Swamp Pharmacy's actions throughout the City of Shadows. He also stated that Stice had admitted that the master of the God Swamp Pharmacy was aware of everything that happened in the City of Shadows. Andre not only took back some of the City of Shadows' resources and shops, but also requested the City Lord of Hushvale City to take down the master of the God Swamp Pharmacy. All kinds of rumors rapidly spread throughout the Darkness Dominion. The dispute between the House of Saint and the God Swamp Pharmacy became the hottest topic in the entire Darkness Dominion. The God Swamp Pharmacy's pharmacy shops in the Darkness Dominion were greatly affected during this period. However, the owner of the God Swamp Pharmacy was obviously not an easy character to deal with. Although the God Swamp Pharmacy's business had been affected, the owner had acted promptly and distanced himself from the incident in the City of Shadows. As a result, the God Swamp Pharmacy was not persecuted by the authorities in the major cities. From this aspect, it could be seen that the God Swamp Pharmacy had quite an impression of the Darkness Dominion. Although the House of Saint was very powerful, they could only do whatever they wanted in the cities under their jurisdiction. They were powerless in the other cities. As time went by, the war of words between the House of Saint and the God Swamp Pharmacy gradually died down. Naturally, the House of Saint would not hand over their resources. They also made it clear that they would not allow any important figures of the God Swamp Pharmacy to enter the City of Shadows. The master of the God Swamp Pharmacy, on the other hand, spread malicious rumors about the House of Saint, saying that the House of Saint was tyrannical and domineering, and that they had seized the opportunity to annex the God Swamp Pharmacy's business in the City of Shadows. All kinds of discussions were going on in the major cities of the Darkness Dominion. One of the names was remembered by many, the genius pharmacist, Brian. The one who benefited the most from the war of words between the House of Saint and the God Swamp Pharmacy was undoubtedly Han Shaw. Following the spread and exaggeration of the incident that night, Han Shaw, a fake who knew nothing about alchemy, suddenly became known as a genius alchemist. The City of Shadows had no shortage of rumors about Han Shaw's miraculous medicinal pellets to begin with. Riding on this wave of rumors, the reputation of Han Shaw's celestial pro-pharmacy and Han Shaw himself rose to a new height. Not only did Han Shaw become the best pharmacist in the City of Shadows, but many people in the Darkness Dominion also recognized Han Shaw as a young genius pharmacist. With that, the problem that had been troubling Han Shaw for a long time was easily solved. With the deliberate efforts of certain people, the news that Han Shaw was recruiting skilled pharmacists spread throughout the Darkness Dominion. Although those pharmacists who left the City of Shadows spared no effort in slandering Han Shaw for being domineering and unreasonable, there were still many pharmacists like Ghoulie who were obsessed with the art of medicine refinement. They paid no heed to Han Shaw's temperament, and traveled thousands of miles to the City of Shadows from various cities just to enter the Celestial Pro-Pharmacy. These pharmacists who were willing to put up with Han Shaw's irascible and exaggerated temper were basically people of genuine ability. With Ghoulie, who was very familiar with the medicine refinement industry, the number of pharmacists in the Celestial Pro-Pharmacy gradually became more plentiful. Gradually, the Celestial Pro-Pharmacy's 3-story shop could no longer accommodate the number of pharmacists. Han Shaw had been waiting for Andre's message and was ready to take over the God Swamp Pharmacy. After a few more days, the war of words between the House of Saint and the God Swamp Pharmacy finally died down. It was at this time that Andre sent someone to invite Han Shaw to the Saint residence. Han Shaw was overjoyed and immediately brought Andrina to the Saint residence. Han Shaw first found Andre. Han Shaw's heart sank when he saw the worried look on Andre's face. He forced a smile and said, "Lord Andre, you look troubled. Don't tell me you have failed? I have recruited quite a number of pharmacists. What should I do if I can't take over the God Swamp Pharmacy?" Andre's expression turned a little better when he saw Han Shaw. He smiled and shook his head. He then said, "It's not as bad as you think. But I did run into some trouble. You know that the House of Saint has a lot of mouths. Sometimes, even my elder brother and I have to consider the feelings of some of our family members. The resources from the God Swamp Pharmacy are worth more than 5 million black crystal coins. My intention is the same as before. I want you to take out some crystal coins first, and slowly repay them after the Celestial Pro-Pharmacy has stabilized and earned enough crystal coins. But recently, some people in the family have been making a fuss. They feel that we can't give you such a huge advantage. They have raised all kinds of conditions. Sigh, I'm in a difficult position." "What conditions?" Han Shaw bunched his brows. He could somewhat understand Andre's difficulties. He knew that some things were not easy for Andre to handle. Since you saved Carmelita twice, they want you to either fork out 3 million black crystal coins at once, or cooperate with the House of Saint to manage the God Swamp. In other words, you will be managing the House of Saint, and the profits will be split according to a certain percentage. Andre forced a smile and said, "Brian, there are a few uncles in the House of Saint who are my elder brother and I. Although they don't possess much strength, they are, after all, influential. If the entire family doesn't agree to it, it will be very difficult for me to do so." This wasn't Han Shaw's first day in the City of Shadows. He had more or less learned about the situation of the major family clans. In the House of Saint, Wallace and Andre naturally held the highest positions. However, they did have a few uncles above them. Although those uncles did not possess much strength, they had the qualifications to do so. Even Wallace and Andre had to give them some face in certain matters. However, Han Shaw didn't believe that Andre and Wallace had no selfish motives at all. The God Swamp Pharmacy's resources were no small sum. Even if Andre and Wallace were willing to hand over the resources to Han Shaw, they wouldn't be asking for nothing. This was something Han Shaw was well aware of. The total value of the God Swamp Pharmacy's resources in the City of Shadows was over 5 million black crystal coins. It was unrealistic to expect them to hand over the resources for free. Han Shaw had no intention of taking the resources for free and had made up his mind to repay them in the future. Little did he expect that things would change. How are they going to split the profits? Han Shaw hesitated for a moment before he asked. 370. You will take 30% and our House of Saint will take 70%. That way, you won't have to repay us any crystal coins. Andre replied rather embarrassedly after hesitating for a moment. 370? Han Shaw bunched his brows. If they were to split the profits like that, a large portion of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy's profits would go to the House of Saint. This was clearly not in line with Han Shaw's plan. Lord Andre, can you help me sell some divine essences? Han Shaw suddenly asked after hesitating for a moment. Divine essences? You have divine essences? Andre stared blankly for a moment and asked with uncertainty. That's right. Not long after I arrived in the Darkness Dominion, I discovered a divine essence mine and extracted some divine essences. I know that divine essences are very valuable, but I didn't dare to take them out because I lacked the strength. Now that things have come to this, I urgently need crystal coins. Would Lord Andre be willing to help me? If it weren't for the special circumstances, Han Shaw definitely wouldn't be willing to sell those divine essences. In order to prevent the House of Saint from monopolizing the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy's profits, Han Shaw had no choice but to do so. No problem. I don't care where you got your goods from. As long as you can produce 3 million black crystal coins to shut those people up, the God Swamp Pharmacy will be yours. In fact, I originally planned to charge you 2 million black crystal coins and have you take out a few tens of thousands of crystal coins as a token of my sincerity. The rest will be yours in the future. But those old fellas don't believe you, so I have no other choice. I'm sorry, Brian. Andre sighed. Don't worry about it. Han Shaw replied smilingly. Soon after, he took out the divine essences in his hand and placed them in front of Andre. Earth Elite Zombie had given Han Shaw all the divine essences of the energy of Earth he obtained last time. Han Shaw consumed all the divine essences of death and destruction. As for the divine essences of the energy of life and energy of life, Han Shaw did not take them out because he was in the Darkness Dominion. With that, Han Shaw took out 22 pieces of wind divine essences and 18 pieces of lightning divine essences. He placed them in front of Andre and asked, That's it. Lord Andre, please give me a price and see if they are worth 3 million black crystal coins. If they are not enough, I will think of something else. Akeley still had some divine essences with him. Han Shaw had prepared everything in order to acquire the God Swamp Pharmacy. In truth, it was very risky for Han Shaw to take out so many divine essences in front of Andre. However, as Andre was a high-ranking member of the House of Saint, and was by no means inexperienced, Han Shaw believed that Andre would not do anything impulsive for the sake of these divine essences. Most importantly, Han Shaw trusted Andre and believed that his existence would only bring benefits to the City of Shadows and the House of Saint. That was why Han Shaw dared to take out so many divine essences. In the Darkness Dominion, a piece of divine essence of wind is worth 60,000 black crystal coins. Lightning is slightly more expensive at 70,000 black crystal coins. The total value is about 2.5 million black crystal coins. Andre bunched his brows and thought for a moment before he said, How about this? I will make up for the rest. In the future, when the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy makes profits, give 10% of the profits to Carmelita. This way, you will have an explanation for the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy's business in the City of Shadows. 10% of Carmelita's profits isn't much, but it will be much more convenient for you to get things done. What do you think? 10% wasn't much, and it was Carmelita who would benefit from it. Without hesitation, Han Shaw readily agreed. Okay. Wait a moment, I will go and communicate with them. There shouldn't be too much of a problem. Andre seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief. He hastily left and headed for a tall, dark building behind the Saint residence. An hour later, Andre returned smilingly with a stack of official documents in his hand. He handed them to Han Shu and said, "These documents prove that you own all the rights and interests of the God Swamp Pharmacy. From today onwards, all the God Swamp Pharmacy's resources in the City of Shadows and its subordinate towns and cities are yours. Congratulations, Brian. Congratulations to you too, hee. Han Shu laughed and pushed the Divine Essence ores to Andre. He asked, "How is Carmelita? Is she feeling better?" Andre didn't hold back. He put away all the divine crystals and said with a smile, "Don't worry, it won't be a problem." After taking a short pause, Andre continued, "Speaking of which, I have to thank you again. With these divine essence ores, we will be able to exchange for more divine essences of destruction for Carmelita. Our family clan has invested quite a lot of resources in order for her to recover. I hope she doesn't suffer any more injuries." Han Shu's heart had already flown out of his chest as he caressed the documents in his hand. He stood up and smilingly replied, "That's good to hear. Right, I still have to settle the matters regarding the God Swamp Pharmacy. I won't disturb you any longer. You're going to be busy for a while. Haha, off you go." Andre, of course, knew that Han Shu would have to deal with the matters regarding the God Swamp Pharmacy and the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy after receiving the documents. "Brian, do you think that fella has selfish motives?" Andrina asked Han Shu on the way back. "Of course he does." Han Shu let out a faint smile and said, "The God Swamp Pharmacy possesses an enormous amount of resources. With the reputation and strength of our Celestial Pearl Pharmacy, it is a given that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy will surpass the God Swamp Pharmacy in the future. I reckon that Andre wants to reap some benefits for the House of Saint. That way of splitting the profits is obviously beneficial to the House of Saint. Otherwise, with Wallace and Andre's influence in the House of Saint, although it might be a little difficult, it shouldn't be too much of a problem for them to suppress the opinions of their uncles. It's just that Andre definitely didn't expect me to have so many divine essence ores. Hee. Will he think of other ways to obstruct us?" Andrina bunched her brows and asked. Han Shu shook his head and smilingly said, "Don't worry, he's a smart man. Besides, we have given him so many divine essences. To the House of Saint, my existence is obviously beneficial to the City of Shadows. Their House of Saint controls all the resources in the City of Shadows. They definitely won't make things difficult for me just because of this little bit of profit. In the future, they will be relying on me for many things." After Han Shu left, Andre fiddled with the divine essence ore in his hand and said in a bitter smile, "This fella, I'm finding it harder and harder to see through him. How long has it been since he came to Elysium? Where did this divine essence ore come from? The future value of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy will be far more than 3 million black crystal coins. This fella is cunning." Chapter 725. The God Swamp Pharmacy had completely disappeared from the City of Shadows and was replaced by Han Shu's God Swamp Pharmacy. However, it was only after Han Shu took over the business that he realized how much effort it took to manage such a huge business. Before taking over the God Swamp Pharmacy, Han Shu was solely in charge of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Collecting medicinal ingredients, refining medicinal pellets, and selling them were all handled by Han Shu alone. However, after taking over the God Swamp Pharmacy, Han Shu was far from being able to make full use of the enormous resources that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy had. Collecting medicinal ingredients, storing medicinal pellets, refining medicinal pellets, and selling them had to be done separately. As a result, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy required more than just pharmacists. Han Shu soon realized that he was far from having enough manpower. Therefore, he began a new round of recruitment. Han Shu was lacking in many talents. He had spent a great deal of time recruiting but still couldn't find enough manpower. It was even more difficult to find talents who were adept in business management. However, Han Shuo wasn't proficient in business management. This gave him yet another headache. Andre and a few other large family clans did recommend some capable people to Han Shuo. However, those people were more or less related to their family clans. Han Shuo was afraid that his family clans would learn of even the slightest movement of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Therefore, he reluctantly refused the people recommended by his family clans and continued to rack his brains for the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Han Shuo had long moved into the former God Swamp Pharmacy. All 17 large and small shops belonging to the God Swamp Pharmacy in the City of Shadows were now under Han Shuo's control. However, even after 2 months, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy still hadn't opened for business due to a lack of manpower. With no other choice, Han Shuo temporarily closed the 16 pharmacies outside the City of Shadows and transferred all the talents he could to the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy in the City of Shadows. He planned to put the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy on the right track in the City of Shadows and at the same time, vigorously recruit talents from all over the world. While Han Shuo was busy with the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy, Avery, who had left the City of Shadows for a long time, suddenly appeared in the mountain range outside the city. Avery had disappeared for more than half a year under the pretext that he was hunting for the murderer of his children. Now that he had finally reappeared, he did not dare to return to the City of Shadows immediately. Instead, he stayed outside the city. Avery was all too familiar with the surroundings of the City of Shadows. In addition to his formidable strength, he managed to evade the detection of many divine guards in the mountain range. He seemed to be waiting for something. There were 3 squads of over 30 divine guards from the 5th Corps standing beside him. These divine guards were from the Laver's residence, and were loyal and devoted to Avery. Night fell. Avery was standing on top of a towering ancient tree with his eyes squinted. He gazed at the City of Shadows in the distance with a gloomy face. Gradually, a human silhouette flew out from the City of Shadows. That silhouette seemed to be afraid that someone might discover his presence. He drifted all over the place in the middle of the night, and changed direction several times before finally arriving before Avery. Kneeling on one knee, the newcomer looked at Avery, who was standing proudly on the tree, and said in a low voice, "This subordinate greets Sir. Number 3, tell me about the recent situation in the City of Shadows." Avery was still gazing at the City of Shadows not far away. He did not lower his head to look at Number 3, who was kneeling on the ground. Recently, the hottest topic in the City of Shadows has been the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy that is about to open for business. The owner of the Celestial Pearl, Brian, has received the full support of the House of Saint, and has become a rising star in the pharmaceutical industry. In addition, the House of Saint has been keeping a close watch on our 5th Corps. Andre has personally visited our 5th Corps 3 times to inquire about Sir's whereabouts. It seems that they have their suspicions on us. Number 3 said in a deep voice. "Brian, he ruined my plans by reviving that bitch Carmelita. I will not let him get away with this," Avery shouted in a low voice. After keeping silent for a moment, he finally lowered his head to look at Number 3, who was kneeling on the ground, and asked, "How many people from the 5th Corps are willing to leave the City of Shadows with me? Including this subordinate, there are 9 of them. I have carefully probed the rest, and none of them have shown any intention of following Sir." Number 3 replied in a deep voice after hesitating for a moment. "Only 9, huh?" Avery softly exclaimed. He sneered and said, "9 it is. Number 3, I will enter the City of Shadows tonight. I do not want anyone to discover my whereabouts. Use whatever forces you have left to make arrangements for me." "Understood," Number 3 replied in a low voice. After thinking for a moment, he added, "My lord, once you use those people, we will have no choice but to leave the City of Shadows immediately. Don't worry. After tonight, we will leave the City of Shadows together." Avery nodded to indicate that he understood. He then consoled, "Whether you follow me in the City of Shadows or any other city, you will still be able to enjoy the same treatment as before." But if you stay in the City of Shadows, you will never be given an important position because of me. My lord has always treated us well. We are willing to follow my lord wherever you go. Number 3 hastily replied. All right, go make the arrangements. I want to kill a few people tonight before leaving. Avery waved his hand. Number 3 cautiously retreated. After returning to the City of Shadows, he immediately contacted some important figures of the Fifth Corps. 2 of them were responsible for guarding the East City Gate. With the 2 deliberately letting go, Avery led a few elite divine guards of the Fifth Corps and snuck into the City of Shadows without anyone noticing. After returning to the City of Shadows, the first thing Avery did was to go to the top of a building not far from the Laver's residence. He looked at the Laver's residence from afar and muttered to himself, Elder brother, I believe that you should know something. I won't be returning to the Laver's residence, lest I bring you trouble. My lord, time is of the essence. What should we do? A person behind Avery asked softly. There are some people in the City of Shadows that I have long disliked. I will kill them all tonight. The sooner we resolve this problem, the sooner we can leave. We must not alert the House of Saint. Otherwise, we will not be able to leave the City of Shadows. Avery coldly commanded. He cast a nostalgic glance at the Laver's residence in the distance before he quietly left with his men. It was a moonless and windy night, a time of murder and arson. Relying on his familiarity with the City of Shadows, Avery and a few elite divine guards of the Fifth Corps evaded layers upon layers of guards along the way. They changed locations and stealthily eliminated a few characters of average strength but were rather influential in the City of Shadows. For example, Tuyas of the House of Buller. Although he possessed ordinary strength, he was an expert in business. He had always been at odds with the House of Lavers. Usually, Avery would not dare to do anything to him. But tonight, Avery had the audacity to kill him in the largest crystal stone shop of the House of Buller. Other than Tuyas, there were a few others who were killed by Avery. As Avery possessed profound strength and most of his targets were mid-gods, he did not attract much attention. My lord, it's about time. We should leave. Number 3 reminded Avery in a soft voice. There is one more person. We will leave immediately after dealing with him. Avery suddenly said in a deep voice after keeping silent for a moment. Who is it? Number 3 asked softly. Brian of Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. That youngster has been enjoying the limelight for quite some time. It's time for him to die. If it weren't for him, Cage and Eve wouldn't have died in Carmelita's hands. I can't touch Carmelita for now, but this youngster must die. Avery said in a cold voice. My lord, I heard that the youngster has a very powerful little girl with him. According to those from the House of Kisa, that little girl had fought with Rudrasi before. The energy of a few dozen low-god and mid-god demon generals was so enormous that it was hard for Han Shuo to imagine. The pleasant sensation of having the energy in his hands made him want to release it immediately. Otherwise, if he allowed the energy to run amok in his demonic body, it would be a torment to his demonic body. You have to release the energy quickly. Otherwise, if the energy is all concentrated in your body, you will be unable to endure it and your demonic infant will be damaged. Cauldron's spirit hastily transmitted. I understand. Why isn't that damned thing attacking yet? God damn it! Han Shuo could sense that his enemies were close by. He gritted his teeth and cursed in his mind. Avery was indeed hiding in the darkness. But after his previous failed attempt at ambushing Han Shuo, Avery no longer dared to attack recklessly. He was still observing Han Shuo and cautiously approaching Han Shuo. He was looking for the most opportune moment to strike. By doing so, Han Shuo, who was gathering energy, suffered greatly. Hurry up and release the energy. At this rate, you will soon be unable to endure it. Cauldron's spirit transmitted again. Unbearable pain filled every corner of Han Shuo's body. Seeing that his enemies were still not attacking, Han Shuo could no longer endure it. He raised his head to the sky and let out a long howl. Like a bloodthirsty beast, he bellowed. Show yourself! The terrifying sound waves blasted towards Avery, who was hiding in the darkness. Intense ripples appeared in the darkness. Avery, who was about to attack, was startled. He did not understand how Han Sho discovered his position. Roar! Han Sho's eyes turned scarlet. The muscles all over his body tightened as he charged towards Avery. How is this possible? Avery cried out involuntarily. He hastily gathered all the darkness divine energy in his body and formed layers upon layers of darkness barriers around him. His domain of divinity instantly absorbed all the element of darkness. Boom! Han Sho brandished the demonic blades in his hands. He charged into the domain of darkness like a bloodthirsty demon. The terrifying energy bombarded the darkness barriers through the demonic blades and destroyed them in an instant. A tyrannical energy rushed into Avery's body. His divine body was immediately injured and he was sent flying. After the attack, the surging energy in his body was released. Han Sho suddenly felt much better. Seeing that Avery was sent flying by his attack, Han Sho was overjoyed. He quickly charged at Avery. The demonic blades were like two rays of cold light as they slashed towards Avery. However, compared to the previous attack that was full of energy, the current attack was obviously much weaker. Although Avery still dodged in a flurry, Han Sho's attack was not enough to take Avery's life. Even so, Avery was scared out of his wits. He did not expect that Han Sho would suddenly change into a different person. The ruthless energy that he suddenly displayed was filled with bloodthirst and madness. Avery had never seen such a person before. Too cunning. This kid has been hiding his strength all along. He is even more sinister than Andre. Avery cursed in his heart. He frantically defended against Han Sho's attacks, constantly looking for a way to escape. Brian, return the demon's power to me. You can't do whatever you want anymore. Otherwise, your demonic infant will be injured. Cauldron Spirit transmitted anxiously while Han Sho was beating Avery to his heart's content and forcing him to retreat. Han Sho was startled. He immediately sensed the abnormality of the demonic infant in his body. With the demon energy filling every corner of his body, the blood essence that nourished Han Sho's demonic infant was rapidly being depleted. The blood essence disappeared from Han Sho's body, allowing his bones and meridians to withstand the flow of demon energy. However, the demonic infant was also inseparable from the blood essence. When the blood essence in the demonic infant was insufficient to support its survival, the demonic infant would be injured and weakened. This was absolutely not what Han Sho wanted to see. Damn it, count yourself lucky! Han Sho cursed in a low voice. He suddenly retreated and stopped attacking. He hastily returned the demon energy in his body to Cauldron Spirit. Avery finally came to his senses after being bombarded by Han Sho. He took a glance at Han Sho in shock. Without saying a word, Avery turned around and hid in the darkness. He led his fifth core divine guards away from the scene. How did you become so powerful all of a sudden? Angelina, who had arrived earlier, looked at Han Sho with an incredulous expression, her mouth wide open. It was precisely because he saw Angelina coming over that he dared to let go of her without hesitation. Han Sho did not reply immediately. He first returned the demon energy in his body to Cauldron Spirit before pointing in the direction Avery left in and said, Andrina, kill that guy for me. I will give you 100,000 black crystal coins. Andrina shook her head and replied, I'm only protecting you. I'm not helping you kill anyone. Forget it then. Avery has escaped. If he comes back again, I will be in deep trouble, said Han Sho in a bitter smile. He had obviously recognized the attacker after fighting for dozens of seconds. I think he is the one who should be afraid. Given the strength you displayed just now, there's no way he can kill you. Andrina looked deeply at Han Sho, put on a faint smile, and asked, Brian, can you tell me what energy you used? How did you suddenly become so powerful? Tell me about yourself first. Only then will I consider if I should tell you the truth, replied Han Sho mischievously. Forget it if you don't want to tell me. What's so great about it? Andrina pouted and said angrily. Huh! What's going on? Akeley rushed over excitedly and shouted. Was there a battle just now? Where is he? The battle between Han Shu and Avery ended in just a few dozen seconds. Akeley was training in a gymnasium a distance away. As his strength was inferior to Andrina's, he did not arrive in time. By the time he arrived, the enemy had already disappeared without a trace. You're late! Andrina glared at Akeley. She paused for a moment and said disdainfully, But even if you came early, you wouldn't have been able to interfere. Akeley knew that Andrina's strength was unfathomable. He became even more excited after hearing those words. Mid-God? High God! Shouted Andrina coldly. Ugh! Akeley immediately hung his head dejectedly. He stole a glance at Andrina in awe and mumbled, Damn it, it's actually a high God! Judging from Akeley's expression, he obviously thought that Andrina had repelled the attacker. It wasn't me! Andrina knew what Akeley was thinking with just a glance. She pointed at Han Shu and said, He was the one who repelled the attacker. Save it! All right, if there's nothing else, I'm going back. Akeley waved his hand. He simply did not believe that Han Shu could repel a high god. He lazily turned around and went back to his place. That idiot! Cursed Andrina, who was in a bad mood. Chapter 726. The next day, news of what Avery did that night spread throughout the City of Shadows. Including Tuyas of the House of Buller, a total of 5 people from the City of Shadows had been killed. Although all 5 of them possessed mid-god strength, they were still characters of great renown. Their sudden deaths immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. The Celestial Pro-Pharmacy did not have its own divine guards. During this period, Erebus had sent Anaito and a small team of divine guards from the Third Corps to patrol the vicinity. Anaito soon received news of what happened in the Celestial Pro-Pharmacy. However, as he arrived later than Akeley, he had no idea what happened. Early in the morning, Erebus, chief of the Third Corps, personally came to look for Han Shu. Are you sure it's him? Erebus immediately asked after he arrived and was led into a secret chamber by Han Shu. That's right, it's Avery. If it wasn't for Andrina being beside me, I would have ended up like Tuyas and the others, replied Han Shu with a frightened face. He told Han Shu that it was Andrina who repelled Avery to prevent him from drawing the attention of the House of Saint and the others. Even if Han Shu didn't deliberately explain, Erebus would have taken it for granted that Avery was repelled by Andrina. Erebus had witnessed Andrina's strength back at the Kisa residence. He believed that in the entire Celestial Pro-Pharmacy, only Andrina possessed that kind of strength. Erebus nodded and coldly groaned. Avery is truly audacious. It seems that he really doesn't want to stay in the City of Shadows any longer. Han Shu kept quiet. He knew that Avery had left the City of Shadows last night. Given Avery's familiarity with the City of Shadows and the help of some of his former confidants, even the House of Saint would have a hard time tracking him down if he wanted to leave the City of Shadows. After all, he was once the chief of the 5th Corps. Erebus did not stay in the Celestial Pro-Pharmacy for too long. After asking Han Shu about what happened last night, he hastily left. Over the next few days, Han Shu learned from Anaito that although the House of Saint had gone all out to search for Avery's whereabouts, they ultimately returned empty-handed due to Avery's well-prepared and timely departure. That night, all of Avery's trusted subordinates left with him. As for those 5th Corps Divine Guards who remained in the City of Shadows, after a round of thorough interrogation, they were secretly captured. The things that Avery had done in the City of Shadows were soon publicized by the House of Saint, including the fact that he had assassinated Carmelita. These events brought new topics of discussion in the City of Shadows. All the large family clans were discussing Avery's actions. As expected, the investigation of the 5th Corps was temporarily put on hold. The members of the House of Lavers were interrogated one after another during this period. The patriarch of the House of Lavers, Felder, firmly dissociated himself from having anything to do with Avery. For the sake of the safety of the members of the House of Lavers, Felder pushed all the blame onto Avery. He even declared that he would expel Avery from the House of Lavers and that he would no longer be a member of the House of Lavers. Field's resolute action had ensured the safety of many members of the House of Lavers. However, the incident with Avery had greatly affected the strength of the House of Lavers. Without the authority of the Fifth Corps, in addition to the suspicion and suppression of the House of Saint, the House of Lavers suddenly became the weakest of the 5 major family clans in the City of Shadows. The tumultuous events in the City of Shadows did not affect Han Shaw too much. After a period of preparation, the Celestial Pro Pharmacy had recruited quite a number of people from all walks of life. It was sufficient for the Celestial Pro Pharmacy to open for business in the City of Shadows. It was at this moment that Han Shaw came across an extremely thorny problem. A group of pharmacists led by Gu Li had been urging Han Shaw to explain to them the refining principles of the rejuvenation medicine, Celestial Pearl medicine, and rebirth medicine. The group of pharmacists led by Gu Li had traveled thousands of miles to the City of Shadows. They were full of admiration for Han Shaw's skill in medicine refinement, and wanted to learn from him. In the beginning, as the Celestial Pro Pharmacy had been too busy, they had behaved themselves and worked hard to get the Celestial Pro Pharmacy on the right track. But now, from their perspective, everything was progressing smoothly. They heaved a sigh of relief and started asking Han Shaw questions about pharmaceutics that were difficult to understand. As a result, Han Shaw's head was as big as a cow's. As someone who knew nothing about pharmacists, Han Shaw was completely helpless in the face of those questions. He had tried to evade them several times in a row. But now that Gu Li and the others had arrived, he knew that he could no longer avoid them. He was in a pharmacy lab. All around him were glassware. The glass cabinets were filled with colorful bottles and jars. Many medicinal ingredients were neatly arranged. At the center of the lab was a complicated glass ball. The bottom of the glass ball was filled with energy crystals that were glistening brightly. The 13 pharmacists led by Gu Li were scattered around the lab. Each and every one of them was looking at Han Shaw with eager eyes. Every one of these pharmacists who dared to come to the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy despite hearing about Han Shaw's irascible and tyrannical temper were as capable as Gu Li. It was impossible for Han Shaw to bluff his way through. Han Shaw felt as though he was trapped in a cocoon of his own making. He had to get past this hurdle. Otherwise, these pharmacists would surely leave the Celestial Pro Pharmacy with their disciples without hesitation. If that happened, the Celestial Pro Pharmacy that they had worked so hard to get back on the right track would surely collapse. Actually, my knowledge of medicine refinement is different from what you know. Under the gazes of the crowd, Han Shaw had no choice but to brace himself and say, I don't know much about your knowledge of medicine refinement. The eyes of the pharmacists were filled with doubt and puzzlement when they heard this. However, none of them said anything. My master taught me medicine refinement. You might not have come into contact with it. Let me show you. Han Shaw knew that the Celestial Pro Pharmacy would be destroyed if he didn't show some tricks. With one thought, the 9 tessellation cauldron flew into Han Shaw's palm. Your medicine refinement requires a large number of medicines to be mixed in glass containers. The medicines are mixed by adjusting the temperature between high and cold temperatures. My method of medicine refinement is somewhat different from yours. I directly smelt the medicinal ingredients together, use a special method to extract the ingredients, and then condense them into a solid at high speed. Han Shaw explained slowly. As he explained, Han Shaw demonstrated the process of medicine refinement. The 9 tessellation cauldron spun on his palm. He tossed several kinds of medicinal ingredients into the cauldron. A fragrant aroma instantly filled the lab. Under the control of the red flame on Han Shaw's palm, the 9 tessellation cauldron spun at high speed. The patterns on its surface glowed faintly and looked extremely beautiful. To these pharmacists, Han Shaw's method was simply unimaginable. They stared dumbfoundedly at Han Shaw's movements. They simply couldn't understand how one could refine medicine using only raw materials and a container. They would first extract the ingredients from the raw materials, and then mix them together to create medicines with different functions. Compared to Han Shuo's method, they had subdivided the process into many steps. However, the end result was not as good as Han Shuo's all-in-one method. A fragrant aroma permeated the lab. After a while, a few dark golden nirvana pills flew out. Han Shuo crushed them and stored them in a medicine bottle that he had prepared beforehand. He then handed them to the pharmacists and said with a smile, "Have a taste, it will greatly benefit your body." The pharmacists who received the nirvana pills couldn't control their desires just by smelling the aroma. They had long heard about the miraculous medicines refined by Han Shuo and the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. After hearing Han Shuo's words, they hesitated for a moment before swallowing the medicine in their hands. All of them were professional alchemists. Although there were some differences between dawn and potions, there were still some similarities in their effects. After taking the nirvana pill, all of them immediately felt the changes in their bodies. They could clearly feel the fierceness of the medicinal efficacy of the pill in their bodies. Very quickly, the few alchemists went to look for the toilet one after another. Each and every one of them had a messy bowel movement. However, every time they came out of the toilet, the complexion on their faces was clearly much better. Each and every one of them exclaimed, "What a miraculous medicine! This medicinal effect is too overbearing." The pharmacists who didn't get the nirvana pills were amazed. Seeing their complexions getting better and better, their admiration for Han Shuo grew. "You are not my disciples. I cannot impart the methods and techniques of refining medicine to you." Han Shuo took in the expressions of the pharmacists, and saw the disappointment in their eyes. He then added, "However, we can discuss the effects of some special medicinal ingredients. There are some medicinal ingredients that you aren't familiar with, but their medicinal efficacy is very miraculous. I can communicate with you and you can study them on your own. You will still be able to make progress." Naturally, Han Shuo wouldn't impart the techniques of refining medicine to these pharmacists because refining medicine required demonic yuan. Even if Han Shuo told them, it would still be difficult for them to refine medicine without cultivating demonic yuan. However, Han Shuo could give them some pointers on the uses of certain medicinal ingredients as a way of thanking them for taking the trouble to come to the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. The pharmacists expressed their gratitude. They obviously understood that Han Shuo wouldn't impart the techniques to them. However, they were very satisfied with Han Shuo's guarantee. Gu Li's face grew redder and redder. She immediately bowed to Han Shuo and said, "I'm convinced." Gu Li was the most famous among the pharmacists. No one dared to doubt Han Shuo's ability after hearing her praise after trying out the effects of the nirvana pill. Han Shuo took out some of the medicinal ingredients he'd personally picked and placed them in the glass containers in front of him. He explained the effects of a few medicinal ingredients to the alchemists. As Han Shuo explained a series of professional pill refining terms, the alchemists all felt that he was profound and unfathomable. Their gazes when they looked at Han Shuo were full of admiration. These people were completely absorbed in recording Han Shuo's words onto the notebooks in their hands. When Han Shuo finished, each and every one of them couldn't wait to try out the effects of those ingredients. They seemed indescribably excited. "Alright, I've told you about the effects and ingredients of these medicinal herbs. Han Shuo sighed in his mind after hearing Donna's words. The current situation in the City of Shadows was indeed unfavorable for the House of Lavers. Han Shuo did not know how to console Donna. After remaining silent for a long while, he softly sighed and said, "Big Sister Donna, take care. I will never forget how Big Sister Donna has taken care of me. Farewell. I hope that the next time we meet, your Celestial Pearl Pharmacy will replace our House of Lavers and become one of the 5 major family clans in the City of Shadows." Donna smiled and waved goodbye. Han Shuo was stunned because he sensed an obscure hatred in Donna's words. Han Shuo shook his head and forced a smile. He thought to himself, "Does Donna think that the rise of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy is by stepping on my House of Lavers?" Chapter 727. After a long period of preparation, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy finally opened for business. On that day, the 5 major family clans of the City of Shadows sent representatives to congratulate the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Andre and Erebus from the House of Saint, Gia and her uncle from the House of Kinson, Ridgersi from the House of Kisa, Tushi from the House of Buller who had replaced Tuyas came with a gift. Even Dewey from the House of Lavers who had a bad relationship with Han Sho came to present a silk banner. On that day, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was truly a gathering of celebrities. In order to establish a good relationship with Han Sho, all the major family clans spared no effort to show their support. The grand opening of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was held in a splendid manner. Those pharmacists who followed Han Sho had refined some medicines commonly used on Elysium. A dazzling array of medicine bottles filled up the empty cupboards. Han Sho busied himself for the entire day. He only sent away the guests when it was dark. As Han Sho did not personally refine any new medicines, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was selling all kinds of commonly used medicines. Although the representatives from the major family clans were disappointed, they still bought more than 400 bottles out of respect for Han Sho. The Celestial Pearl Pharmacy made a net profit of more than 20,000 black crystal coins. With this good omen, Han Sho believed that with his reputation in the City of Shadows, it would only be a matter of time before the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy made a fortune. Everything in the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was on the right track. Han Sho left Guli to handle all the pharmaceutical-related issues. Guli, who used to be at odds with Han Sho, now admired Han Sho from the bottom of her heart. She was truly loyal and devoted to Han Sho. As a result, Han Sho had more time to cultivate. With the experience of borrowing Cauldron Spirit's energy, Han Sho spent the next few days in the gymnasium trying to use Cauldron Spirit's energy. When Cauldron Spirit's energy was infused into Han Sho's body, Han Sho would instantly gain tremendous strength, allowing him to fight a high god head-on. However, although Han Sho's demonic body was tough, he could not sustain it for too long. After dozens of attempts, Han Sho could only sustain it for 3 minutes at most. Han Sho's demonic infant would not be able to endure any longer. Han Sho quickly realized that borrowing Cauldron Spirit's energy wasn't the right way to cultivate. Only by forging his demonic body to an even more tenacious state of mind could he truly become powerful. Although Han Sho had never stopped comprehending and cultivating in the Omen realm, he did not have much time left. It would be extremely difficult to make any progress without at least 100 years of cultivation. The Omen realm was not the ultimate realm of demonic arts. There were 3 other realms after the Omen realm: Skybreak realm, Demon Lord realm, and Exalted Demon Lord realm. The Exalted Demon Lord realm was the pinnacle realm. It was at this realm that Gu Tianxia forcibly pierced through a cosmic rift and arrived at this realm. Just from Cauldron Spirit's description, Han Sho could imagine how powerful the Exalted Demon Lord realm was. In the future, every step of advancement would require a long period of cultivation, and there would be great dangers along the way. When breaking through from the Omen realm to the Skybreak realm, one would have to face the demonic tribulation. This was a process that one had to go through. If one failed to overcome the demonic tribulation, not only would one's strength stagnate, one might even perish in body and soul. This made Han Sho realize that every subsequent breakthrough would be extremely dangerous. Time flew by quickly. Han Sho stayed in the gymnasium in seclusion. 10 years had gone by in the blink of an eye. After his adventures on Elysium, Han Sho's strength in all aspects had improved to varying degrees. The 10 years of meditation had calmed his mind and stabilized his Omen realm. 10 years on Elysium would pass in the blink of an eye. But for gods whose lifespans could easily reach tens of thousands of years, 10 years was just too short. After Han Sho walked out of the gymnasium, he quickly learned about the current situation from Guli and the others. During the time he was in seclusion, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy had earned Han Sho more than 1,000,000 black crystal coins. 5 of its 16 branches had opened for business. The Celestial Pearl Pharmacy had undeniably become the largest pharmacy in the City of Shadows. During this time, the members of the House of Lavers had used all sorts of excuses to withdraw from the City of Shadows. The House of Saint had turned a blind eye to this, as the House of Lavers had contributed to the City of Shadows. Even though Wallace was wary of the House of Lavers, he could not be too harsh on them, as they had not betrayed the City of Shadows. Field obviously understood Wallace's intentions. He had been overseeing the Lavers' residence all this time and had only asked Donna, Dewey, and the others to leave under the pretext that they were traveling and cultivating. With Field deliberately keeping a low profile, the House of Lavers that had lost the trust of the House of Saint rapidly declined. In just a short 10 years, the House of Lavers had lost the prestige of being one of the 5 major family clans in the City of Shadows. Some members of smaller family clans even dared to go against the House of Lavers. Field did not mind all this. He endured everything with great patience, and used all sorts of methods to send the members of the House of Lavers away. It seemed that Field's actions were in line with Wallace's intentions. Not only did Wallace not stop Field's actions, he even tacitly approved of Field's actions. The existence of a small rift between major family clans could destroy the friendship they had painstakingly built up. Especially when Avery had nearly killed Carmelita, Wallace could not forgive him. After Avery's disappearance, the position of Chief of the Fifth Corps had been vacant. Other than the House of Lavers, the other 3 major family clans had shown great interest in the position of Chief of Divine Guards. Even some of the smaller family clans saw the position as an opportunity to rise to the top in a single bound. They had used all sorts of methods to try to snatch the position from the hands of the House of Saint. However, in order to maintain the balance between the major family clans, Wallace had issued an order: anyone who wished to take the position of Chief of Divine Guards must exchange it with Avery's head. Avery had been missing for many years and no one knew where he had gone. After Wallace issued that order, although all the major family clans in the City of Shadows had painstakingly searched for Avery, they had not made any headway. As such, although the position of Chief of the Fifth Corps was coveted by all the major family clans, it had remained vacant until today. After learning about the recent news in the City of Shadows, Han Shuo saw that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy was on the right track and that he had established some foundation in the City of Shadows. Therefore, as much time had passed, Han Shuo decided to travel to Profound Continent and bring those he could not part with to Elysium. Han Shuo had no enemies in the City of Shadows for the time being. With the financial resources of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy and the backing of the House of Saint, Han Shuo believed that the safety of Phoebe and the others would not be a problem. Elysium was rich in elemental energies. There were just too many experiences and references on the path to godhood. There were even some divine souls of low god that could be purchased. Compared to Profound Continent, the cultivation environment here was undoubtedly dozens of times better. Emily, Phoebe, and the others possessed extraordinary strength. Han Shuo believed that they would make rapid progress in this superior environment in the City of Shadows. They would advance much faster than if they were to cultivate on Elysium. After making up his mind, Han Shuo prepared to head to the interplanar transportation matrix and return to Profound Continent. Before leaving, Han Shuo made a trip to the Saint residence as Carmelita had fully recovered from her injuries. Han Shuo was shocked when he saw Carmelita again. 10 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Carmelita's skin had become much fairer than before. Although there were still some spots on her face, they looked very faint. Although the originally ugly Carmelita was no longer beautiful, she looked much easier to accept. She no longer had that malevolent aura about her. Carmelita was overjoyed at Han Shuo's arrival. She patted Han Shuo's shoulder excitedly and said, "Brat, I've been to the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy to look for you several times. I didn't expect that you would be cultivating all this time. Look at me, what's different about me? You've become prettier," Han Shuo said sincerely. "Haha, that's what everyone says. Thank you, Brian. Not only did you save me twice, but you also turned my damned face around. I don't even know how to repay you," Carmelita said with a big smile. "We're friends after all." Han Shaw said smilingly. After chatting with Carmelita for a while, Han Shaw said, I'm going to leave Elysium for a while. It might be some time before I can return. Ah! Carmelita let out a soft cry and asked in astonishment. Where are you going? I'm going back to my hometown to bring some people over. Haha, Elysium is the most suitable place for cultivation. I've been living a good life here. I can't forget my old friends. Back when I was on Elysium, I couldn't even fend for myself. Now that I've finally settled down, I should do something for my old friends. When Han Shaw thought of Emily, Phoebe, and the others, he found it hard to suppress the longing in his heart. You sure are nostalgic. I've been forced by my father to cultivate recently. Otherwise, I would have gone to play with you. But I know that the little girl is very powerful. It shouldn't be a problem for her to follow you. Just be careful, Carmelita said smilingly. By the way, why do all the interplanar transportation matrices in the City of Shadows have to be built so far away? Han Shaw asked after thinking for a moment. To us, people from other continents are just slaves who provide us with the power of faith. Generally speaking, we rarely travel to other material planes. Therefore, we rarely use interplanar transportation matrices. Besides, to us, those who can enter Elysium have to walk out from the most remote places. Only those who have made it to the big cities through their own efforts will be able to gain some recognition. Therefore, interplanar transportation matrices are usually built in remote valleys, Carmelita explained. Han Shaw couldn't help but smile wryly after hearing those words. He understood that to the people of Elysium, people from other low-level continents were only worthy of being ordered around by them. They had a natural sense of superiority. Generally speaking, they would leave Elysium for the sole purpose of conquering other continents, and obtaining the power of faith from them. Although Elysium was vast, the people of Elysium were willing to waste time on traveling as they saw it as a way to temper themselves. Therefore, interplanar transportation matrices were usually located rather far away from the main cities. This was also to let outsiders know that Elysium was not as easy to live on as their original material planes. After chatting with Carmelita for a while longer, Han Shaw left the Saint residence and returned to the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. After 2 days of preparation, he left with Andrina. Andrina possessed formidable strength. With her alone, Han Shaw believed that there wouldn't be too many problems during the journey. Even if they ran into a god hunter like Bravst, Andrina could easily escape with Han Shaw. This time was different from the past. Han Shaw was going to bring all his friends from Profound Continent to the City of Shadows. They would have to pass through many places along the way. With Andrina by his side, Han Shaw's safety was greatly assured. After leaving the City of Shadows, Han Shaw and Andrina headed straight for the valley where the transportation matrices were located. Along the way, Andrina was very curious. She kept asking Han Shaw about the situation on Profound Continent, annoying Han Shaw to no end. Along the way, they passed through a few mountain ranges and did run into a few scattered god hunters. However, none of those god hunters managed to escape from Andrina's ruthless attacks. All of them died by Andrina's hands. You don't seem to show any mercy to god hunters. Do you have some kind of blood feud with them? Han Shaw asked Andrina puzzledly after passing through a mountain range. Having known her for so long, Han Shaw had never seen Andrina kill anyone. Even when Han Shaw tried to tempt her with crystal coins, she wouldn't kill for Han Shaw. However, back when Han Shaw first got to know Andrina, he had seen her hunt god hunters in Green Fire Swamp. She was severely injured because she was besieged by a few god hunter leaders. From this aspect, it could be seen that Andrina was indeed very special to god hunters. From her recent behavior, Han Shaw could tell that Andrina had a deep hatred for god hunters. They deserve to die. Andrina's face immediately turned ice cold when she heard Han Shaw mention god hunters. You have a grudge against them? Han Shaw asked. Andrina nodded. When she saw that Han Shaw was about to ask more questions, she hastily said, It has nothing to do with you. Don't ask so many questions. After taking a short pause, Andrina said in a low voice, You have a lot of secrets too, I haven't asked about them in detail. After hearing those words, Andrina forced a smile and nodded. He did not pursue the matter any further. The two continued on their journey. Andrina possessed extraordinary strength, and Han Shuo was very fast. After spending more than 2 months, the two finally arrived at the interplanar transportation matrix that Han Shuo had come from. Unlike when he first came here, he had to pay a sufficient amount of crystal coins to use the interplanar transportation matrix. After arriving at the valley, Han Shuo soon met with Jeff, who had previously helped him apply for a divine tablet. However, compared to his previous enthusiasm, Jeff's attitude this time was much colder. When Jeff heard that Han Shuo wanted to use the interplanar transportation matrix, he said in an eccentric manner, "Yo, I heard that you have been doing quite well in the City of Shadows recently. However, you seem to have forgotten who was the one who helped you arrange everything when you first arrived here. Although we live in a remote area, we still know a lot of rumors. We are very concerned about the ungrateful behavior of certain people." After taking a short pause, Jeff said mischievously, "I'm sorry, today the interplanar transportation matrix only allows entry and not exit. You'll have to wait for a while." Han Shuo's face turned cold, and he asked, "Then when is it going out?" "I can't say for sure. That will depend on Lord Dolores," Jeff replied lazily. Dolores was Dolux's elder brother. On the first day Han Shuo arrived at the Laver's residence, he nearly killed Dolux's. It was obvious that everyone in the City of Shadows knew about what happened in the City of Shadows. Unfortunately, they had only seen the glorious side of Han Shuo and had absolutely no idea about Dolux's despicable behavior. They also did not know that Avery had tried to kill him twice. From these people's point of view, the House of Lavers had been taking good care of Han Shuo. They had arranged everything for him even before he arrived on Elysium. Little did they know that after Han Shuo arrived in the City of Shadows, not only did he not contribute anything to the House of Lavers, but he even made an enemy of the House of Lavers. Therefore, they thought that Han Shuo was ungrateful. "Take me to Dolores. I'll talk to him," Han Shuo shouted coldly while suppressing the anger in his heart. "Hee, Lord Dolores is busy and has no time to talk to you. Besides, I also have something to do and I don't have the time to bring you around. Please go ahead," Jeff said in an indifferent and mocking manner. It was obvious that he was deliberately making things difficult for Han Shuo. Jeff had made things difficult for Han Shuo previously. But because of Dolores, Han Shuo quickly understood the situation and Han Shuo did not bicker with him. But Han Shuo did not expect that he would be obstructed on his return to Profound Continent. Han Shuo was immediately enraged. Slap! Han Shuo delivered a slap to Jeff's face. A line of blood flowed from the corner of Jeff's mouth and his body staggered. You dare hit me?" Jeff shrieked. He immediately rushed out and yelled, "Murder! Guards!" Han Shuo sneered and followed after Jeff. He looked at Jeff, who was shouting and yelling with cold eyes, and sent another kick at Jeff. The kick sent Jeff flying. When Jeff landed on the ground, several of his bones were broken. Soon enough, a group of divine guards in the vicinity rushed over. Among them was their leader, Dolores. When Dolores saw Han Shuo, he put on a cold and murderous face and said, "I don't care what you do in the City of Shadows. Since you dare to strut around in my territory, I have the right to take you down." After the incident with the Lavers family, Dolores would no longer be as friendly to Han Shuo as before. Han Shuo was well aware of this. He knew that the reason why Jeff dared to talk to him so brazenly was because of Dolores. "I want to use the interplanar transportation matrix. He deliberately obstructed me. He's asking for a beating." Han Shuo sneered and took out the House of Saint badge from his space ring. He waved it in front of the divine guards and said, "This is the badge of the House of Saint. I believe you all recognize it. Please open the interplanar transportation matrix and let me leave. Otherwise, you will be betraying the House of Saint. You know the consequences." It was destined that Han Shuo would never be friends with Dolores. Since Dolores had instigated Jeff to do so, Hans Shaw did not hold back. Dolores glared at Hans Shaw coldly. He looked to his left and right, took a deep breath, stopped his subordinates, and shouted in a deep voice, "Let them pass." Under the watchful eyes of the divine guards, Hans Shaw boldly left through the interplanar transportation matrix. After Hans Shaw disappeared, Dolores put on a cold smile and ordered, "Jeff, bring those prisoners that have been locked up recently. Send them to the coordinates. Whatever happens to them, it has nothing to do with us. My lord is wise." Jeff was overjoyed when he heard this. He eagerly led his men to fetch the vicious prisoners. Chapter 728. Profound Continent. Nothing much had changed. The ocean surrounding the cemetery of death was azure. The sea breeze was gentle and the air was fresh. However, the elemental energies of heaven and earth were much thinner. Hans Shaw, who had just returned from Elysium, found it rather difficult to adapt. "The elemental density here is a little too low," remarked Andrina with a frown as soon as she walked out of the cemetery of death. "This place is different from Elysium. If the elemental density here was too high, I'm afraid that even high-level gods would have come." Hans Shaw put on a faint smile. He unfolded his consciousness and took in the surroundings. He suddenly let out a long laugh and said, "Come, follow me back to the city." The two soared into the sky and flew towards Bretel's city of Lancelot Empire. Half a day later, Hans Shaw and Andrina appeared on the streets of Bretel City. As soon as Hans Shaw landed in the city, the scenery of Bretel City was immediately imprinted in his mind. Bretel City was obviously much more prosperous than before. The originally lifeless city was now bustling with traffic. All kinds of shops could be found on every street block. The dazzling array of goods could dazzle one's eyes. Standing on the streets of Bretel City, a sense of familiarity rose spontaneously. After experiencing the liveliness of the city for a while, Hans Shaw and Andrina headed straight for the city lord's mansion. Bretel City had changed a lot after being away for more than a decade. The city lord's mansion stood at the center of the city. Squadrons of knights clad in black armor stood proudly on all four sides of the mansion, guarding it. Hans Shaw's arrival caused the entire mansion to seethe with excitement. Those whom he was familiar with gathered at the mansion from various districts upon hearing the news. They expressed their excitement in various ways. Jack, Dorcas, and the others had obviously aged. Having not spent much effort cultivating their various energies, they had all become middle-aged men. Jack's children had even joined the army and become Bretel City's knight captains. Helen, on the other hand, was still as beautiful as ever. She had taken a rebirth pill to preserve her youth. She was now a fire-sacred magus with a dazzling halo around her. Very soon, familiar characters began to arrive one after another. Through Dick's message, Emily, Phoebe, Fanny, Jasper, and others who were familiar with Hans Shaw arrived via transportation matrices from various major cities. After not seeing each other for more than 10 years, Emily, Fanny, and the other girls all shed silent tears when they saw Hans Shaw, blaming Hans Shaw for being so heartless. With a few comforting words, these women of high status in the Lancelot Empire finally calmed their chaotic emotions and began to discuss the situation with Hans Shaw. Unsurprisingly, Lancelot Empire had now become the most powerful nation on Profound Continent. Odin Empire, Brute Merchant Alliance, and Kasi Empire had all been annexed. Lawrence had achieved his wish of becoming the overlord of Profound Continent on the surface. The Church of Light and the Shrine of Ice had retreated to impoverished lands and stopped recruiting believers. They had also ceased their religious activities on Profound Continent, gradually withdrawing from the stage of Profound Continent over the past 10 years. In Lancelot Empire, there were only believers of the Druidic Order and the Calamity Church. A large portion of them worshipped the new god, Hans Shaw. No matter how one looked at it, the current situation on Profound Continent was very ideal. Gilbert, Statholm the Old Monster, the Emperor of the Flames, Elizabeth, his apprentice Sanguiner, Balans, Trunks, and others who were familiar with Han Sho all hurried over after receiving the news. In the largest banquet hall of the city lord's mansion, these people who were familiar with Han Sho were all gathered together. Everyone, I have been away for more than 10 years. I am truly happy to be able to gather here today. Let us drink to our heart's content today. Han Sho raised his cup and laughed heartily. The crowd raised their cups and drank to their heart's content. After getting drunk for 3 days, the sober crowd gathered together. This time, Han Sho started to talk about serious matters. The elemental energies on Profound Continent are too weak, resources are not abundant, and the cultivation of energy is still at a low level. Han Sho slowly described the situation on Profound Continent and Elysium. The crowd listened attentively to Han Sho's words. For many of them, this was the first time they had learned about this vast universe. When they heard that Elysium was rich in elemental energies and gods were everywhere, many of them were greatly shocked. I will be leaving soon after I return. After I leave this time, there won't be many opportunities for me to return. All in all, Elysium is a much more suitable place for cultivation. I have established some businesses there and I can guarantee your safety. If any of you wish to pursue greater strength, you can tell me and I will bring you to Elysium, Han Sho said in a deep voice. A decade or so was a long time for ordinary people, especially those who did not spend time and energy on cultivation. They spent most of their time and energy on having children. Some of them already had family and love on Profound Continent that they could not bear to part with. Han Sho knew that not everyone would be willing to make a long and arduous journey to a new and unfamiliar environment. Master, I will go wherever you go, Gilbert immediately declared without the slightest hesitation. Soon after, Statholm the Old Monster, the Emperor of the Flames, Elizabeth, Balance, Sanguiner, and the others who wholeheartedly pursued greater strength also excitedly expressed their support and strongly requested to leave with Han Sho. These people did not have too many attachments on Profound Continent, and were wholeheartedly working hard to become stronger. Now that they heard that they would be offered even better conditions, they did not even think twice and immediately agreed. Fanny, Emily, Phoebe, Helen, Jasper, and the other women who were close to Han Sho more or less had family and loved ones on Profound Continent. However, it was even more difficult for them to bear the thought of being separated from Han Sho. After hesitating for a moment, they too expressed their willingness to follow Han Sho. However, before leaving, they wanted to bid farewell to their loved ones. As for people like Dorcas and Jack, as they pursued different things, in addition to the fact that they already had a family in Bretel City, after pondering for a period of time, they ultimately did not decide to leave. Having gotten his revenge, Trunks now possessed an enormous amount of resources, including the Valley of Sunshine and the Dark Forest. Now that he had a daughter with that female bandit Janet, he too could not bear to leave and therefore decided to stay. Even those who did not leave would need some time to settle some affairs. Therefore, after tallying up the number of people, Han Sho gave them a time limit. 3 months. After 3 months, they would gather at Bretel City. Those who did not show up at that time would be considered to have decided to stay. Knowing that Han Sho would not have many opportunities to meet them after leaving, those who had decided to stay did not leave Bretel City. During this period of time, they reunited with Han Sho and drank to their heart's content. Han Sho unceremoniously took out some of the cultivation items that he had prepared for Emily and the others and handed them to his friends who planned to stay on Profound Continent. Some of those items were origin crystals, while others could be used in secret arts. They were priceless items on Profound Continent. Han Sho generously distributed them. Emily and the others did not mind as Han Sho had informed them that these items could be purchased on Elysium with crystal coins. Therefore, they had no qualms about it. Parting was always somewhat sorrowful. Everyone made use of getting drunk to make up for it. For more than 2 months in a row, the city lord's mansion in Bretel City was filled with the strong smell of alcohol. The fragrance of fine wine could be smelled from miles away. Drunken dignitaries constantly walked in and out of the city lord's mansion, drawing the attention of the residents in the city. Han Sho even made a trip to Asan City to bid farewell to King Lawrence of Lancelot Empire. Lawrence was very helpless about Han Sho's departure. However, now that profound continent was completely under his control, it didn't seem like a big deal to lose Han Sho. Lawrence and Han Sho could not be persuaded to stay. In Asan City, Candide, Emma, and Gree the Banshees, Pegasus, and Ermite Cotton, who were once subdued by Han Sho, also expressed their desire to leave with Han Sho when they heard that he was going to leave. They were already standing at the pinnacle of profound continent. As they had been tirelessly pursuing power, they were obviously unwilling to give up this opportunity. After hastily making preparations, they all hurried to Bretel City. 3 months later, Gilbert, Statholm the Old Monster, the Emperor of the Flames, Elizabeth, Balance, Sanguiner, Emily, Fanny, Candide, Emma, Gree, Pegasus, Ermite Cotton, and the others gathered in Bretel City. After bidding farewell to Jack, Trunks, and the others, they all followed Han Sho to the cemetery of death in the boundless sea. Every one of these people who were willing to leave with Han Sho was someone who pursued power. All of them had the ability to fly, which made the journey very convenient. After spending 7 days under Han Sho's lead, the party finally arrived at the island where the cemetery of death was located. Before they landed on the island, Andrina suddenly bunched her brows and said to Han Sho in a soft voice, "Huh! There's someone here!" Han Sho was startled. He hastily expanded his consciousness, and immediately sensed that there were 5 people in the cemetery of death. All 5 of them were mid-gods. This puzzled Han Sho. "All of you, be careful. Stick close to each other." Han Sho turned around and instructed those people in a soft voice. None of those who were heading to Elysium this time had reached the low god realm. If a battle were to break out, they wouldn't be able to retaliate at all. "What's going on?" Statholm the Old Monster asked. "There might be enemies. These people aren't people that you can handle for the time being. But don't worry, with me and Andrina around, if they have any malicious intent, they will be dead," Han Sho explained. He instructed Andrina to carefully protect his friends from Profound Continent as they slowly landed on the island. "Haha! After waiting for more than 3 months, you have finally arrived," a coarse voice sounded from the center of the cemetery of death. Shortly after, a group of 5 sinisterly flew out from the cemetery of death. One could tell at a glance that these people weren't good people. Their eyes were filled with undisguised frenzied killing intent as they stared at Han Sho. Han Sho's face turned cold, and he asked, "Who are you people?" "Youngster, I don't know who you are. In any case, we were originally destined for death. We were forcefully sent to this low-level material plane." That person told us that there is only one low god in this low-level material plane, and that we would be dead if we were to return to Elysium. Here, no one can do anything to us and we are rather free and unfettered. Of course, the prerequisite is that we get rid of you first. The leader of the group looked at Han Sho with a sinister smile. When he saw Emily, Fanny, and the other women behind Han Sho, he laughed excitedly and said, "Not bad. Although the people of this low-level material plane are weak, these women are rather pretty. It has been a long time since we touched a woman. Very good, very good. You were sent here by Dolores, weren't you?" Han Sho's face turned gloomy. He coldly sized up the group and immediately guessed what had happened. That's none of your business. In any case, from today onwards, we are the ones who call the shots on this continent. Youngster, just accept your bad luck," the leader said with a maniacal laugh. The few people behind him sized up Emily and the other women with sinister gazes. They wanted nothing more than to rush over and attack them. "You keep an eye on them. I'll get rid of this trash." Before Han Sho could say anything, Andrina had already rushed out. Andrina had always detested this kind of people. "Haha, it's a little girl. I like her. Don't you dare snatch her from me." A shabbily dressed little old man who cultivated in the energy of darkness rubbed his hands excitedly when he saw Andrina flying over. Andrina didn't cultivate in any of the 12 fundamental energies, and she was adept at concealing her aura. Therefore, the 5 of them had no idea that Andrina was a god of slaughter. "Leave one alive," Han Sho hastily reminded when he saw Andrina rushing out with a cold face. "Got it. I'll leave one alive for you," Andrina replied to Han Sho impatiently. Then, like a sheep entering a tiger's den, she charged at the 5 people. A gorgeous curtain of light flew out from her delicate body and formed 5 small vortexes that instantly sucked all 5 people in. As expected, the 5 people were reduced to a bloody mess and turned into a rain of blood that scattered on the ground. The crude leader looked as if he had been skinned alive. Covered in blood, he looked at Andrina with fear in his eyes and screamed, "Spare me, spare me! Is it Dolores?" Han Sho asked indifferently after he had stored the other 4 people's divine souls into the cauldron of myriad demon. "I don't know any Dolores. I was escorted here by an old man named Jeff." The man screamed and begged bitterly, "Please spare me, we have no enmity between us." "All right, he has no value anymore." Han Sho waved his hand mercilessly. He already knew who was behind this. Bang! The man's body exploded. Blood and flesh splattered all over the ground. Mike Cotton, Statholm, and the others behind Han Sho were all dumbfounded. The 5 people did not conceal their terrifying auras. Before them, Mike Cotton and the others found it difficult to even breathe. Yet these 5 experts were so easily killed by Andrina. Moreover, Andrina looked like a little girl. This strong contrast shocked them greatly. "Oh no, the interplanar transportation matrix has been destroyed!" Andrina suddenly cried out in alarm. "What?" Han Sho was shocked. "What do you think?" Andrina hesitated for a moment, and felt that this was the only way. "It's too difficult. To travel from Profound Continent to Elysium and find a suitable place to travel to Elysium. Who knows how many setbacks and how much time would be wasted," Han Sho said with a deep frown, shaking his head and sighing. "Other than that, do you have any better ideas?" Andrina asked. Han Sho shook his head and forced a smile. "It seems that this is indeed the only way. However, I will have to look for those from the Druidic Order. Back then, that guy came here by crossing interplanar planes. Maybe he knows a shortcut. It would be great if he knows a shortcut." Andrina nodded and sighed. "It's a pity that there are no experts cultivating in the Edict of Space on this material plane. Otherwise, there might be a way to repair this interplanar transportation matrix." Han Sho, who was about to make a trip to the Druidic Order, stared blankly for a moment. But soon after, his mind jolted and he laughed. "There might be a way." "What is it?" Andrina asked, puzzled. Back then, during the battle with the Light Pope, Han Sho had snatched the Holy Grail from them. McKinley, who was inside the Holy Grail, was an expert cultivating in the Edict of Space. As Han Sho had been rather busy lately, he had long forgotten about McKinley inside the Holy Grail. It was only after hearing Andrina's words that he remembered that there was a divine soul cultivating in the Edict of Space inside the Holy Grail. Han Sho took out the Holy Grail from his space ring and attempted to communicate with McKinley using his consciousness. "Hey McKinley, how are you? You stinking brat, it's been a long time since you've looked for me." McKinley cursed in a low voice when he saw that Han Sho had finally remembered him. After scolding Han Sho for a while, he asked, "Why did you think of me this time?" I want to ask you for a favor." Han Sho put on a bitter face after listening to McKinley's complaints for a while. If it wasn't for the fact that he needed an expert cultivating in the Edict of Space, Han Sho wouldn't have thought of McKinley. Han Sho had previously promised McKinley that he would accompany him whenever he had free time. It was obvious that Han Sho had gone back on his word. "I knew you wouldn't think of me when you don't need me, humph," McKinley complained to Han Sho. After a while, he asked, "Speak, what's the matter?" The interplanet transportation matrix on this continent has been destroyed. You cultivate in the Edict of Space. Do you have a way to repair it for me? Han Shaw hastily replied. McKinley's divine soul grew visibly excited when he heard that Han Shaw wanted him to repair the interplanet transportation matrix. He did not immediately answer Han Shaw's question but hastily asked, "What's wrong? Are you thinking of leaving Profound Continent? Are you planning to go to Elysium?" Haha, if you are really going to Elysium, you must bring me to the Space Dominion to look for someone. Who knows, I might even be able to find my divine body. Yes. Han Shaw dared not tell McKinley that he had returned from Elysium. Otherwise, McKinley would be infuriated to death by Han Shaw. Back when Han Shaw asked McKinley about Elysium, McKinley had implored Han Shaw to help him make a trip to the Space Dominion if he ever returned to Elysium. Han Shaw had long promised to do so. Unfortunately, he had forgotten about McKinley's existence after arriving on Elysium. Naturally, he couldn't fulfill his promise. Are you really going to Elysium? McKinley was indescribably excited. Only by going to Elysium would he be able to find a way to change his situation and escape from the Holy Grail. That's right. Do you have a way to repair the interplanet transportation matrix? Han Shaw asked impatiently. That depends on how badly damaged the interplanet transportation matrix is. But even if it's completely destroyed, as long as you can provide me with sufficient materials, I can still help you build a new one. McKinley said confidently. I'm a high god cultivating in the Edict of Space. Back in Elysium, I was a well-known character in the Space Dominion. Repairing a small interplanet transportation matrix is a piece of cake. Han Shaw was overjoyed to hear those words. He asked, "The broken interplanet transportation matrix is just ahead. What should we do?" "Put the Holy Grail inside the interplanet transportation matrix. I will be able to sense the situation through the remnants of the Edict of Space around the matrix," McKinley said proudly. Without hesitation, Han Shaw carefully placed the Holy Grail on top of the destroyed interplanet transportation matrix. "Brian, who's the divine soul inside the Holy Grail?" Andrina put on a grave face and softly replied, "That fella's divine soul is very powerful. He should have entered late-stage low-god realm. When did you get to know such a terrifying fella?" Andrina possessed extraordinary strength. Given that Han Shaw and McKinley were communicating with each other through their souls, it was only natural that she could sense McKinley's existence. He's an unlucky bastard who had just reached late-stage high god realm and cultivated in the Edict of Space. His divine soul and divine body were separated by someone. His divine body was imprisoned in some unknown place, and his divine soul was imprisoned in this Holy Grail. He was transported from Elysium to this material plane. I only found out about all this because I happened to obtain this Holy Grail," Han Shaw explained smilingly. "How did a late-stage high god end up like this? Who did he offend?" Andrina was greatly astonished. There wasn't a single late-stage high god expert on Elysium who wasn't famous. She was even more astonished when she heard about McKinley's strength. According to him, he seems to have offended one of the God of Light's 3 keepers of the light, Jar, replied Han Shaw after recalling for a moment. Jar! Andrina's face jolted. She looked at the Holy Grail with great astonishment. She forced a smile and explained to Han Shaw. "Brian, Jar is one of the most terrifying experts in the Light Dominion. Every one of the 3 keepers of the light is incredibly powerful. For this fella to be sealed in the Holy Grail by Jar, he can't be a nobody." "What's his name?" "McKinley." Han Shaw didn't try to hide it. "It's him." Andrina was once again shocked. Under Han Shaw's astonished gaze, Andrina explained. "This fella used to be a very famous character in the Space Dominion. Not only is he powerful, but he also has a very eccentric temper. He has been missing for tens of thousands of years. I didn't expect that he would be imprisoned by Jar. No wonder. Why are you so familiar with the situation on Elysium?" Han Shaw looked at Andrina blankly. I've lived longer than you," Naturally, I've heard more than you. Many people on Elysium know about these things. It's nothing to be surprised about. When Andrina saw that Han Shuo was doubting her identity again, she giggled innocently. Why wouldn't I know? Han Shuo glared at her and asked. How many things are you hiding from me? Little friend, how long have you been on Elysium? It would be strange if you knew, hee hee. Andrina rolled her eyes. I'll settle the score with you sooner or later, Han Shuo said angrily. Sister Fanny, Brian is bullying me, Andrina cried out in her sweet voice. When Fanny heard that, she immediately glared at Han Shuo and said angrily, Brian, why are you always fooling around with a child? Andrina is so adorable and everyone loves her. You're the only one bullying her. Recently, Andrina had been getting along quite well with the ladies around her, especially the kind and innocent Fanny. She was the closest to Andrina. During this time, Fanny had brought Andrina to tour the entire profound continent. She was very fond of Andrina. Every time she saw Han Shuo berating Andrina, she would be the first to stand up and rebuke Han Shuo. A child? Even 100 of you added together wouldn't be as old as her. Han Shuo forced a smile and secretly glared at Andrina. He did not say anything else. He knew that it was pointless to talk to Fanny. As long as Fanny treated Andrina as a child, Han Shuo wouldn't be able to change anything. This woman was adorably silly. Look! Statholm softly shouted, drawing the attention of the crowd. The Holy Grail that contained McKinley suddenly produced an intense undulation. The space around it rippled like water. Under the effect of some bizarre energy, the previously destroyed interplanar transportation matrix miraculously began to reconnect. Soon, a small-scale interplanar transportation matrix appeared before Han Shuo. The group was dumbfounded. They hadn't expected McKinley to be so fast when he made his move. Many of the interplanar transportation matrix's materials were destroyed. I can only repair it with existing materials. Therefore, this interplanar transportation matrix is slightly smaller. It can only transport 2 or 3 people at a time. However, as long as you have enough energy crystals, you will still be able to return to Elysium safely. McKinley transmitted to Han Shuo after the Holy Grail had returned to Han Shuo's hand. Thank you, Han Shuo said sincerely. Without McKinley's help, who knew how many twists and turns they would have to go through in order to reach Elysium? You're welcome. Just remember to send my divine soul to the Space Dominion when you arrive on Elysium. As long as you help me with this task, I will definitely reward you handsomely after I find my divine body. McKinley repeatedly reminded Han Shuo as he was obsessed with finding his divine body. Don't worry. I will definitely remember this. Once I settle down on Elysium, the first thing I will do is make a trip to the Space Dominion and settle your matter. Han Shuo immediately guaranteed. This time, he was truly sincere. Han Shuo had enough energy crystals in his possession. Interplanar transportation wouldn't be a problem. However, as he wasn't on good terms with those in the interplanar transportation matrix valley in the Darkness Dominion, Han Shuo had Andrina, Fanny, and Emily go first. He was in charge of constantly activating the interplanar transportation matrix. Rays of dazzling white light flashed past. The familiar faces disappeared before Han Shuo's eyes in groups of 2s and 3s. Han Shuo and Ermike were the last to enter the interplanar transportation matrix after everyone else had used the interplanar transportation matrix to reach Elysium. After a flash of white light, Han Shuo finally returned to Elysium. What a dense elemental energy! My goodness, this place is perfect for cultivation. Ugh, the gravity is so strong. I can't even fly. This is great. A day of cultivation here is equivalent to a year on Profound Continent. What a miraculous place. No wonder gods are everywhere. As soon as Han Shuo arrived at the valley, he was greeted by a cacophony of chatter. Those who had just arrived on Elysium could immediately sense the differences between Profound Continent and Elysium. Andrina giggled and stayed with Fanny. She explained the differences between Elysium and Profound Continent to Fanny. Back on Profound Continent, Fanny was the host. She had brought Andrina around the entire continent. However, as soon as they arrived on this unfamiliar Elysium, Fanny immediately appeared rather restrained. As the host, Andrina began to console Fanny smilingly. "What's going on? Why are there a bunch of people who haven't ascended to godhood? What bad luck!" On the viewing platform, a few divine guards noticed that a bunch of strangers had suddenly appeared. They immediately started discussing among themselves. "Come this way, shouted a divine guard at the front. His mouth was filled with foul language. "You fellas, do you think Elysium is a place for sightseeing? With your strength, coming to Elysium is no different than suicide. I really don't understand you lot. How dare you come to Elysium with such meager strength? You must be tired of living." Bam! Before the divine guard could finish his sentence, Andrina raised her little hand. The divine guard was sent flying as though he had received a heavy blow to his chest. "Cut the crap! I will kill you if you dare to talk nonsense again!" Andrina glared at the divine guard. A powerful aura suddenly emanated from her petite body. Andrina was in a very bad mood after the interplanar transportation matrix on Profound Continent was destroyed. She had almost been unable to return to Elysium. As soon as she arrived, she heard this person blabbering on and on. "How dare you!" The divine guards around her were startled. They suddenly surrounded Andrina and pointed their divine weapons at her. It was at this moment that Han Shuo, who was surrounded, walked out from the crowd with a sneer. He looked at the divine guards and said, "Where's Dolores? Releasing a condemned prisoner without permission is a capital offense. Are you all tired of living?" These divine guards recognized Han Shuo and knew about the conflict between Han Shuo and Dolores. Their faces jolted when they saw Han Shuo suddenly appear. They did not expect that Han Shuo would be able to return to Elysium alive. "Lord Dolores isn't here. We don't know where he is," a divine guard lightly groaned. One of the divine guards softly groaned. It was obvious that he was very displeased with Han Shuo. However, he knew that Han Shuo had some status in the City of Shadows and that he had a close relationship with the House of Saint. Therefore, he dared not speak ill of him. "Dolores is done for. Good luck to you all," a divine guard lightly groaned. Han Shuo put on a faint smile and decided not to bicker with these people. He nodded at Andrina and led Fanny and the others to the place where divine tablets were processed. "Old Jeff, you didn't expect me to come back alive, did you? Hee hee." Han Shuo lifted Jeff up and gave him a few slaps on the face. Jeff was dizzy and seeing stars. What gives you the right to hit me?" Jeff shrieked as soon as he regained his senses. However, it seemed that Dolores really wasn't around. No matter how loudly he yelled, Dolores did not show up. "Cut the crap. Process their divine tablets for me. I'll talk to you later." Han Shuo sneered as he threw a black crystal coin in front of Jeff. "Those below base god strength cannot process divine tablets." Jeff raised his head and shouted. Han Shuo's face turned cold as he grabbed Jeff by the neck. He pulled Jeff to his side, looked him straight in the eye, and softly asked, "Are you sure you won't do it?" Jeff felt a chill run down his spine. His hair stood on end. He knew that Han Shuo had the intention to kill him. His expression changed drastically and he hastily said, "I'm not trying to make things difficult for you. Without base god strength, there's no way a divine tablet can verify one's identity. I'm just a small fry. Please let me go." Chapter 730. One cannot obtain a divine tablet without base god strength. Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment. Judging from Jeff's fearful expression, he did not seem to be lying. In that case, only a handful of people could obtain a divine tablet. "Do whatever you can for me first." Han Shuo flung Jeff hard onto the table with a bang. He nodded repeatedly with a face full of fear, deathly afraid that Han Shuo would directly kill him. Jeff knew a little about the relationship between Han Sha and the House of Saint. Given Han Sha's current status in the City of Shadows, it wouldn't be much of a problem for him to kill a minor character like Jeff. Although Jeff had been following Dolores all this time, he was able to quickly discern the situation when his life was at stake. Under Jeff's arrangement, Stratholm the Old Monster, Ermite Cotton, the Emperor of the Flames, and the others quickly settled the divine tablets. As for those like Fanny who had yet to attain base god strength, since the divine tablets could not confirm their identity, they could only wait until later. After Jeff had settled Han Sha's matter, he carefully handed over the crystal coins to Han Sha. He did not dare to say anything for fear of angering Han Sha. "Tell me where Dolores is and I'll spare your life," Han Sha said coldly as he narrowed his eyes at Jeff. He didn't take the remaining crystal coins. "Please spare my life, my lord. I really don't know where Dolores is," Jeff cried out in fear. "Brian, don't make things difficult for him," Fanny said softly. Han Sha softly groaned and said, "All right then, I'll let it go for today. But you have to be more careful in the near future. Dolores is done for. I heard that it was you who sent those death row prisoners to Profound Continent. This is no small crime. Just you wait to be punished." Upon finishing those words, Han Sha paid no more attention to Jeff. He left the place with Andrina and headed towards the direction of the City of Shadows. As long as Han Sha went back to inform Erebus, Andre, or Carmelita, Dolores and Jeff would definitely be severely punished. The two of them would be in trouble sooner or later, so he wasn't in a hurry to do anything to them. When they arrived on Elysium, due to the drastic change in gravity, most of those who came from Profound Continent had lost the ability to fly. With that, they could only walk on foot. Their speed immediately dropped. At this time, Han Sha realized that he had been negligent. If he had known this would happen, he would have bought a flying bat. With the flying bat, they wouldn't have wasted so much time on the road. It was a pity that the flying bats were only sold in some big towns, and the valley was remote, so there was still a long way to go to the nearest big town. Stratholm and his party weren't in a hurry. They were new to Elysium and were highly interested in everything. They constantly marveled at the vastness of Elysium and the abundance of elemental energies on Elysium. They were especially interested in the flora and fauna on Elysium. The women, in particular, treated the journey as a sightseeing tour. They couldn't stop chattering and laughing along the way. 3 days after Han Sha left Elysium, Dolores returned. Through Jeff, Dolores immediately understood the situation. His face turned gloomy, and he said hatefully, "That youngster sure is lucky to be able to return to Elysium alive. My lord, what should we do? Given his relationship with the House of Saint, all he needs to do is say a word and we'll both be done for." Jeff had a dejected look on his face. He was truly afraid. "That's right. That's right. What are you panicking for?" Dolores chided. He bunched his brows and thought for a moment before he suddenly asked, "You are saying that he brought a lot of weaklings with him?" "Yes, there isn't even a low god among them. There aren't many of them who have reached base god or demigod realm. In our Elysium, they wouldn't even be able to defeat a child," Jeff replied. "I see." Dolores sneered and said, "With such a group of burdens, that youngster won't be able to travel quickly. As long as we find a way to prevent him from ever returning to the City of Shadows, we will be fine." "My lord, what do you mean?" Jeff stared blankly for a moment. He knew that Han Sha would not be easy to deal with after he failed to kill Han Sha the last time. Now that he thought about it, he realized that there was no irreconcilable hatred between him and Han Sha. Besides, he was also afraid of Han Sha's influence in the City of Shadows. In his heart, he was no longer willing to provoke Han Sha. "You don't have to worry about this. I have my own arrangements." Dolores' eyes glinted with sinister and cold lights. He instructed, "Take care of the problems in Elysium. I need to go out for a while." Dolores, who had just returned to Elysium, did not stay for long. He immediately left with his men. Hushvale City God Swamp Pharmacy's headquarters. In a secret underground chamber, Avery, who was meditating in the pitch-black darkness, suddenly sensed something. He turned his head and discovered that a magical device was glowing beside him. Then, Dolores's image gradually became clearer. What happened? Avery asked in a deep voice. Second uncle, that kid came back alive. Dolores in the mirror image replied. How is that possible? Avery's expression changed slightly. He softly cried out. Even if those prisoners couldn't cause them any trouble, they would have destroyed the transportation matrix on that low-level material plane. Without the interplanar transportation matrix, it won't be easy for them to return to Elysium. Have you checked the transportation matrix on that material plane? It's sealed. Only those who know how to seal it can pass through. Dolores replied with a bitter smile. Huh! Avery cried out in surprise. Could it be that there are experts cultivating in the Edict of Space among their group? Otherwise, how could they have sealed the interplanar transportation matrix? I don't know either. Dolores shook his head. Tell me the details. Avery's face turned cold, and he shouted in a deep voice. After Dolores explained the situation, Avery sneered and said, I didn't expect that youngster to bring so many burdens with him. All right, I got it. They can forget about returning to the City of Shadows alive. Upon finishing those words, Avery disconnected his connection with Dolores and reconnected the magical device. A moment later, another person appeared in the magical mirror, the master of God Swamp Pharmacy. Avery, how are you doing here? The white-haired old man asked smilingly. Very well. Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Hassling. Avery first smiled and expressed his gratitude. Shortly after, he put on a solemn face and said, I have received news that Brian of Celestial Pro Pharmacy has just returned from a low-level material plane. He has taken over everything in the City of Shadows. I believe Mr. Hassling will be very interested in teaching him a lesson. What's the situation? Hassling put on a faint smile and asked in a soft voice. After listening to Avery's explanation, Hassling nodded smilingly and said, I understand. Continue to rest. Leave this matter to me. Hassling took the initiative to disconnect with Avery. Then, Avery used the magical device to contact another person. When the blurry image of that person appeared, Hassling smilingly said, Bravs, the little girl you are looking for has just left the interplanar transportation valley in the City of Shadows. I believe you will be very interested in her. If you can help me deliver the head of that youngster named Brian to me, I will give you an additional 100 bottles of mind confusion poison. Deal! Before the image of the person appeared, a deep voice sounded and the connection was severed. How dare you ruin my business? Youngster, the God Swamp Pharmacy isn't that easy to take over. I want you to spit it all out. Hassling sneered. Elysium is so vast. It took us 7 days just to reach a single valley. Phoebe lamented. That was what the crowd was thinking. They had gradually adapted to their new environment over the past few days and realized just how vast Elysium was. Some, such as Gree the Banshee, Pegasus, and a few others, were considered outstanding characters back on Profound Continent. They could practically do whatever they wanted on the entire Profound Continent. Unfortunately, after arriving on Elysium, they encountered some people who were low gods. Their auras instilled fear in them. They cautiously followed behind Han Shuo, fearing that they would have nowhere to go if they left Han Shuo. Yes. This continent is vast. Even a small valley is bigger than the territory of the Lancelot Empire. We need to hurry to the nearest city and buy an airship. Otherwise, at this rate, we won't be able to reach the City of Shadows for at least a year or two, Han Shuo said smilingly. Brian, are those god hunters really that terrifying? Fanny was instinctively afraid of the god hunters that Han Shuo mentioned. Whenever she thought of those people who specialized in hunting gods, she felt a chill run down her spine. God hunters are a special group of people on Elysium. These people hunt others to increase their strength. They are the most abominable. As soon as I run into those god hunters, I will kill every last one of them. Andrina said hatefully. Don't worry, the god hunters won't be interested in you. You haven't reached the low god realm and you haven't condensed divine energy in your body. They won't waste their time on you. Han Shuo comforted Fanny. So you're saying that we don't even have the qualifications to be hunted? Statholm the old monster put on a bitter smile. He shook his head and sighed. It seems that we have been looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. Sigh, although the cultivation environment on this continent is excellent, this is too much of a blow to our confidence. Don't worry. To be able to cultivate to this stage in a place as barren as Profound Continent shows that all of you possess astonishing aptitudes. On Elysium, I will provide you with crystal coins. Using the rich elements here, your strength will rapidly increase. I believe that it won't be long before every one of you reaches the low god realm. Han Shuo comforted Statholm smilingly. This was also the reason why Han Shuo spared no effort to bring them to Elysium. To be able to cultivate to such a stage on Profound Continent was a testament to their wisdom and aptitude. Now that they were in a better environment, under great pressure, they would definitely work tirelessly to become stronger. With Han Shuo's help, they would improve rapidly. It was not impossible for them to become the main force of Han Shuo's family head in the future. After another month, the group finally passed through the valley. After traveling for more than 10 days, they arrived at an even more vast mountain range. This mountain range was even vaster than the valley. As long as they passed through this mountain range, they would be able to reach a slightly larger town. Perhaps they would be able to buy an airship there. After traveling for a few days in this mountain range, Han Shuo suddenly discovered through his demon generals that there were a lot more people around them. Those people were pretending to be ordinary godswolds, but were secretly observing Han Shuo and his party. Something's not right, Han Shuo said to Andrina. Although Andrina's divine soul was sharp, it was limited to the area around her. Naturally, she couldn't see things that were extremely far away with the help of her demon generals like Han Shuo could. What's going on? Andrina asked puzzledly. A lot of people are secretly gathering here using all kinds of methods. Those people possess extraordinary strength. Although they are carefully concealing their auras, they are paying close attention to us. In my opinion, they should be god hunters, and not the scattered kind, Han Shuo said in a deep voice. You mean the God Hunter Alliance? Andrina was startled. Shortly after, she said angrily, they are courting death. I was just fretting that I couldn't find them. Han Shuo shook his head and put on a grave face. He said, they seem to know that you are here. That's why they aren't approaching us. I think we are in big trouble this time. What do you mean? Andrina stared blankly for a moment. Soon after, she realized something and cried out in surprise. You mean? Han Shuo nodded and said in a deep voice. It might be like what happened at Green Fire Swamp. They seem to be waiting for their leaders to arrive. They will only attack us when they are fully confident. Andrina was startled. She said, if that's the case, even I won't be able to protect all of them until they reach the City of Shadows. I know! Han Shuo took a deep breath and said, that's why we have to split up. You will stay here with them for the time being. Use a boundary to conceal their auras and yours. We will stay in this mountain range for some time. Meanwhile, I will leave by myself and think of a way to lure those people away. After they leave, you will bring them to the nearest city, purchase an airship, and send them to the City of Shadows as quickly as possible. How can you lure them away? Their target should be me. If they can't see me, they won't fall for your trap, Andrina said anxiously. A demon general flew out from Cauldron Spirit and slowly materialized in front of Han Shuo. It gradually took on the appearance of Andrina. Then, a few more demon generals flew out and transformed into the appearances of Statholm, Fanny, and the others. Each and every one of them looked exactly the same as Han Shuo and Han Shuo. This is... Not only Andrina, but everyone else was shocked. They looked at Han Shuo in disbelief. It was a very impactful scene to suddenly have another version of themselves in front of them. All of a sudden, they were all stupefied. That's it. Any more questions? Han Sho put on a faint smile and asked Andrina. How did you do it? Andrina shook her head and forced a smile. Last time, you said that you could only use this life form to gather information. But now you can transform into a human at will. Just how many more secrets do you have? Chapter 731. This transfiguration ability won't be able to deceive anyone. As long as I examine it with my divine soul from a close distance, I will be able to tell the difference. However, those god hunters won't dare to get too close. It is indeed difficult to discern the difference from a distance. In this case, I can lure them away while you stay here and conceal your presence. After some time, you can escape via another route. You should be fine, Han Sho said smilingly. What about you? If those god hunter leaders move out and surround you, won't you be dead meat? Andrina asked worriedly after thinking for a moment. Fanny and the other ladies were worried sick. They started disagreeing with Han Sho's suggestion. Although these ladies were very confident in Han Sho, after coming to Elysium and witnessing the experts of this world, their confidence in Han Sho was not as blind as before. After listening to Andrina's suggestion, they did not want Han Sho to take the risk. Don't worry, I might not be able to defeat them, but no one can stop me if I want to leave, Han Sho said smilingly. You should know that there aren't many who are better at escaping than I am. Are you really confident that you can escape from their encirclement? Andrina was still rather skeptical. Even she almost died when she was hunted down by those god hunter leaders, let alone Han Sho. Han Sho nodded and replied confidently. Absolutely. All right, I will stay here with them. As long as you lure those god hunters away, I guarantee that you will be able to safely escort them to the City of Shadows. Andrina hesitated for a moment, but ultimately agreed to Han Sho's suggestion. She had no better ideas other than that. Most importantly, Andrina felt that Han Sho was hiding a lot of secrets. Based on her understanding of Han Sho, she knew that Han Sho wasn't the kind of person who would boast. Without absolute confidence, Han Sho wouldn't be so confident. Brian, I'm sorry, we've become a burden to you. Ermike put on a bitter face. He, who had once been an all-powerful figure on Profound Continent, had never imagined that he would one day be so helpless. It doesn't matter. Everyone, there's no need to be disheartened. With your aptitude and comprehension, you'll definitely make a difference in this vast continent. In time, all of you will enter the realm of Low God. When that time comes, you won't have to worry so much, Han Sho said smilingly. Thank goodness we came with you. If we had come to Elysium alone, I'm afraid none of us would have survived to become low gods. Statholm shook his head and sighed endlessly. At this point, he'd already figured out the situation and fully realized the benefits of having an acquaintance. All right, you can thank me later. Han Sho took out a bag of black crystal coins and tossed it to Andrina. He warned, This is for you to buy the airship. Don't be greedy. You're so long-winded. Of course I can figure out the situation. Andrina put away the crystal coins and groaned discontentedly. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll meet in the City of Shadows. Han Sho waved his hand and led the group of dummies that the demon generals had conjured, leaving without a second thought. Without Ermike and the other encumbrances, Han Sho's speed was much faster. Although he was still on foot, his transformed demon generals were still very fast. Some of his demon generals transformed into the appearances of Andrina and the others, while the others remained in their incorporeal forms. They spread out in all directions, secretly spying on every movement within 100 miles of them. Not even the slightest movement could escape Han Sho's eyes and ears. Many scattered god hunters surrounded Han Sho from all directions. These god hunters had varying strengths. Most of them were early-stage or mid-stage mi-gods. For the time being, not a single high god was detected. They were very cautious and did not attack Han Sho without permission. They were most likely wary of Andrina's strength, and were waiting for their leader to arrive. With the help of his demon general's vision, Han Sho effortlessly avoided some of the areas where god hunters were densely packed. He purposely chose areas where the god hunters were weaker and fewer in number, disrupting their movements and forcing them to change their course. For the next 5 days, Han Sho and his transformed demon general had ventured deep into the heart of the mountain range. It was at this time that the demon general finally discovered the presence of a high god hunter. It was an ugly young man in ragged clothes. His face was full of bumps and hollows as though he had been severely scalded. He had a head of long, disheveled silver hair and cultivated in the energy of darkness. As soon as this person arrived, many of the god hunters in the vicinity gathered around him and respectfully reported the situation in the mountain range to him. The high god's soul was extremely sensitive. Fearing that the high god would discover the existence of the demon generals, Han Sho had all the demon generals in that area moved far away. This way, the high god could only vaguely see the location of those people but not hear what they were saying. They were obviously wary of Andrina. Even though this young man was alone, they did not immediately launch an attack. Instead, they continued to encircle Han Sho from afar. In order to lure them further away, Han Sho had no choice but to move towards a less populated area. When those god hunters saw that Han Sho was approaching, they all moved away from him. 3 days later, a few more god hunters arrived at the mountain range, including 2 high gods. One of them was a burly man cultivating in the Edict of Destruction, while the other was a white-haired old woman cultivating in the Edict of Death. Based on Han Sho's understanding of the god hunters, Han Sho surmised that the burly man cultivating in the Edict of Destruction was Bravst, whom he had met in the valley. With 3 high gods of death, darkness, and destruction arriving in the mountain range, and a dozen mid-gods and late-stage mid-gods, their combined strength was not inferior to any of the large family clans in the City of Shadows. When they felt that the time was right, they began to gradually close in on Han Sho and prepare to strike. Han Sho immediately raised his vigilance when he saw that they had started to move. Before they could complete their encirclement, using the probing abilities of his demon generals, Han Sho stealthily crept into the weakest part of the encirclement. Those demon generals transformed into Andrina and the others were immediately put away by Han Sho. They transformed into their incorporeal forms and clung to the lush foliage of the trees. As soon as the obvious targets disappeared, Han Sho immediately concealed his aura and moved stealthily in the shade of the lush foliage. Lord Bravst, the targets have suddenly vanished without a trace. A mid-god cultivating in the Edict of Destruction hastily came to the burly man's side and reported in a low voice. Vanished? Bravst's thick brows bunched. His eyes glinted as he nodded and said, Andrina possesses extraordinary strength. It seems that she has discovered our plan. She must have used some special method to conceal her aura. However, with such a large target, there's no way that they can escape from our encirclement. As long as we continue to close in on them, we will surely be able to find them. That's right. Our encirclement has shrunk to a very small area. There's no way that they can escape without making a sound. We must find Andrina even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Andrina is too big of a threat to us god hunters. If she doesn't die, our god hunters will suffer even greater losses. That ugly young man said in a sinister voice. All of you, be careful. If you notice anything amiss, report it immediately. Kiki, they are carrying a bunch of ants who have yet to reach low god realm. There's no way they can escape. That old woman said with a strange laugh. After hearing the 3's words, the god hunters quickly left the area. They flew across the area and occupied every advantageous terrain. Bit by bit, they began to close in on the encirclement. These god hunters were well trained and had long been accustomed to hunting others in the mountain range. They cooperated with each other in an orderly manner. Unfortunately, all of their actions had fallen into Han Sho's eyes. Without Stratholme and the other burdens, and without the barrier, in this area full of cover and towering trees, it would be more difficult than ascending to the heavens to capture Han Shuo, who knew his every move like the back of his hand. Under the shade of a large, withered tree, Han Shuo dug a hole that could only fit one person. He sunk his entire body into the hole and held his breath in rapt attention. He opened his mind and soul. His consciousness was ethereal and empty. He did not think about anything and became one with the nature of the mountain range. One god hunter after another passed by Han Shuo. However, not a single one of them discovered the target that they had been painstakingly searching for. Even that low god of darkness who possessed high god strength did not discover the anomaly beneath his feet when he passed by this area. Their encirclement was still slowly shrinking. Soon, all the god hunters had gathered at the center from all directions. "We didn't discover anything. There's no one on our side. There's nothing." Several dozen god hunters gathered at the center of the encirclement. Each and every one of them reported their situation. However, not a single one of them discovered anything unusual. "How is this possible?" that ugly young man cried in a low voice. He said, "They were clearly within this encirclement. How could so many of them suddenly vanish?" "Galas, don't worry. They definitely did not leave this area. Andrina possesses extraordinary strength. As long as she hides and constructs boundaries that conceal her aura and presence, it's normal that we wouldn't discover her," Brav said in a deep voice after thinking for a moment. "Then what should we do?" that high god of darkness named Galas asked in a low voice. "It's simple. Everyone, split up and attack in all directions. As long as it's a boundary or seal, there will always be some anomalies when it is attacked," that old woman said with a sinister smile. "That's right. Everyone, split up and attack one area at a time. We don't need to expend much divine energy. Even a small bone arrow will be enough to find out the situation," Bravs commanded. The god hunters obeyed the order and started sweeping the area they came from. They launched all kinds of attacks at the same time, stirring up clouds of dust and snapping tree branches. Using this method, they rapidly cleared out all areas that could possibly be affected by the boundary. "God damn it, luckily I'm smart enough to keep them at the back. Otherwise, Andrina's boundary wouldn't be able to hide from them in such a blanket search." Han Shuo cursed in a low voice from underground. He saw that one of them was getting closer and closer to him, so he walked out of the ground. Han Shuo had actually left their encirclement. If Han Shuo were to leave at this moment, those god hunters would have no way of stopping Han Shuo. He could easily retreat. However, if Han Shuo were to leave without making a sound, those god hunters would definitely not give up on searching the entire mountain range. If they were allowed to remain in this mountain range, they would pose a great threat to Andrina and the others. Having evaded the encirclement, Han Shuo had no choice but to purposely reveal himself and make a bit of noise in this area. With a crack, an old tree that was neither too big nor too small suddenly snapped. Suddenly, a loud and clear whistle sounded. The god hunter closest to Han Shuo immediately shrieked, "Over here! Over here!" One after another, figures were shuttling through the trees. Terrifying auras converged towards Han Shuo from all directions. It was an extremely frightening sight. Han Shuo was running at top speed. He deliberately left behind tracks along the way. Sometimes he would break a branch on a tree, and sometimes he would leave heavy footprints on the ground. With that, those god hunters no longer had any doubts. They followed closely behind Han Shuo and chased after Han Shuo with all their might. After traveling for half a day, Han Shuo no longer deliberately left behind tracks and concealed his aura. When those god hunters reached the last track left behind by Han Shuo, they suddenly discovered that they had lost track of him. It became rather difficult for them to continue the pursuit. "What should we do?" a mid-god asked. "They must not have gone too far with those burdens. Since the tracks have disappeared, there is only one possibility." Bravs mischievously laughed and said, "They must have gone into hiding again." Everyone, spread out and continue to search using the same method as before. I believe that after running for so long, they must be more tired than we are. Let's see where they will run to this time. Be careful. Remember, as long as Andrina is alive, you will be killed sooner or later," Gallus coldly shouted. The group no longer wasted any more words. 3 high gods each led a few people to search in 3 different directions while the rest spread out and cautiously searched. Using his demon generals, Han Shu observed every step of the god hunters. He was silently waiting for an opportunity. This time, there was no fixed encirclement. They were searching from the inside to the outside. Unlike shrinking the encirclement, the distance between each other was increasing. From the very beginning, they were certain that Han Shu and Andrina were carrying a lot of burdens. With that in mind, they had made a complete error in their judgment. As the distance between them grew wider and wider, Han Shu, who had nothing to worry about, instead became the hunter in this mountain valley with the help of the demon generals' all-around surveillance. One of the god hunters sent out streams of darkness divine energy from his hand, stirring up a cloud of dust. He cautiously walked forward with his eyes wide open, searching for any possible anomalies. "Bloody hell, these bastards really know how to run!" cursed the god hunter in a low voice. Unknowingly, he had put some distance between himself and the person closest to him. However, as he was too focused on searching, he did not notice. He arrived under an ancient tree, raised his head to look at the dense foliage, and casually sent out a stream of darkness divine energy. Crack! Another branch snapped. He paid no attention to it, and continued to walk forward. Slowly, he arrived under the tree and sent out another stream of darkness divine energy towards a small pond. "Still nothing!" cursed the god hunter in a low voice. Suddenly, he discovered that there were no more god hunters in the vicinity. It was then that he realized that he had moved too far away. Did I search too far? He suddenly had such a thought. As soon as he thought of this, he prepared to change his direction and approach the god hunter closest to him. But at this moment, a dozen or so dark shadows suddenly descended from the dense foliage above his head. They entered his body in an instant, causing his limbs to stiffen and depriving him of the opportunity to call for help. Rustle, rustle, Han Shu's figure gently landed on the ground. The cauldron of myriad demon flew out from his body and covered the top of the god hunter's head. Creak! The demonic blades penetrated the god hunter's abdomen. Demonic yuan instantly destroyed the insides of the god hunter's divine body. In the next moment, the cauldron of myriad demon exerted its power and absorbed the god hunter's divine soul. The dozen or so dark shadows flew out of the god hunter's divine body like bats. Han Shu opened his hand and absorbed the cauldron of myriad demon back into his body. He gave the god hunter a gentle push and the god hunter fell soundlessly into the shade of the tree. "You're the first," muttered Han Shu to himself. His body swayed and he disappeared into the shade of the tree. On the other side, a god hunter who was quite a distance away from the other god hunters was walking on soft ground. Just as he felt that the ground beneath his feet was a little strange, a hand suddenly stretched out and grabbed his ankle. Terrifying energy surged into his body and sealed his ability to call for help. Then, a dozen or so dark shadows appeared and swarmed into his body. They completely froze his divine body. The cauldron of myriad demon flew out of Han Shu's hand and landed on the god hunter's abdomen. Boom! 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 His divine body exploded and his divine soul was absorbed into the cauldron of myriad demon by Han Shu. Han Shu continued to search for his next target as he sneered in his heart. "Mother Asterisk Cur, treating me as prey? Let's see who's the real prey today!" With the terrifying perception of his demon generals and his ability to conceal his tracks, Han Shu had become the god hunter's worst nightmare in this mountain range where he could hide from any direction. He specifically targeted those weaker god hunters who were relatively far away from the others. Once he succeeded, he would immediately retreat. In a very short period of time, he had hunted down all 7 god hunters, leaving not a single one alive. Ah! An ear-piercing shriek came from afar. The god hunters immediately rushed towards the source of the sound. When they arrived, they saw the lifeless corpse of one of their companions lying on the ground. It didn't take long for more people to discover the corpses of their companions. The god hunters, who had been full of confidence, as hunters, started to panic when they saw the corpses of their companions appearing one after another. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.